Okay, we're going to do this again. I'm calling to order Public Hospital District Number 4, King County Hospital District Board of Commissioners meeting on January 7, 2016 at 6:30 p.m. at City Hall. Val, could you do the roll call, please?
President Norris?
Here.
Vice President Young?
Here.
Secretary Spikers?
Here.
Commissioner Herron?
Here.
Commissioner Pollard?
Here.
Thank you.
The next order of business will be introducing our new commissioner, Emma Herron. Oh, wait, I skipped ahead. No? Okay. And we also, all right, now could you please rise with me as we do the Pledge of Allegiance as led by our legal counsel, Jay Rodney.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, now we will do the roll call.
No, you did the roll call.
Yeah. No, we didn't do the roll call.
No, we did.
I guess we did. Okay.
You just did,
This is, okay.
That's fine. Okay.
Okay, now we're going to do oath of office. Commissioner Emma Herron, am I saying
Herron.
Herron is our new commissioner in position number 3. She has already been sworn in, but I'd like to introduce her to you. She's here for 2 years, filling a previous position that was empty. Thank you, Emma. We're glad to have you. And then we are going to be giving the office of the oath by Notary Valerie Hoffman to Commissioner Young, who's position number 5, and position number 1, Commissioner David Spikers. So you folks going to rise? And
We're ready. Stand up. Do it.
I think you should stand up.
Stand up.
Yeah.
Raise the right hand.
Yeah. Come on, guys.
Definitely raise right hand. I think you can stand with
I'm good. Oh, you didn't have to.
Oh.
I feel good.
All right, so Joan, I'll do you first. If you'll repeat after me. I, Joan Young,
I, Joan Young,
having been duly appointed to the office of Commissioner for Public Hospital District Number 4,
Commissioner for Public Hospital District Number 4,
position number 4, do solemnly affirm that I will support the Constitution of the State of Washington and the Constitution of the United States, and all laws and local ordinances, and that I will faithfully and impartially perform and discharge the duties of this office according to the law and to the best of my ability. Thank you. And I will have you sign this when we're all done.
Okay, it needs to say Commissioner number 5. Is that correct?
I'm 5.
Oh, I'm sorry, you are. I'll change that and we'll get
Okay, we don't have to do it over, though.
No.
Sure.
I will make that correction.
I don't.
Okay, David. I, David Spikers.
I, David Spikers,
Having been duly appointed to the office of Commissioner for Public Hospital District Number 4,
for Commissioner
Public
of
Hospital District,
Public Hospital District Number 4,
position number 1,
position number 1, correct,
do solemnly affirm that I will support the Constitution of the State of Washington
I will support the Constitution of the State of Washington and the Constitution of the Federal Government of the United States.
And all laws and local ordinances. And that I will faithfully and impartially. Perform and discharge the duties of this office. According to the law and to the best of my ability.
According to the law and to the best of my ability.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Point of order, Madam Chair. The word was used, appointed to this position. Shouldn't the word be elected, is duly elected to this position. In the oath, the word appointed was used.
I'm going to ask legal counsel.
Yes.
I think appointed, elected, I think that in this, let me check on that, and, but I think the oath is still valid. There's already been a certification of
It's a
election.
minor point, but it's just I was surprised to hear the word appointed, which would have applied to Ryan Roberts and someone filling a unfilled position.
Yeah.
So, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Pollard. The next order of business will be the approval of the agenda. Is there a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
I so moved.
I have, I just was...
We need a second first, don't we?
I would second with a question.
Okay, why don't we, do you want a discussion after we second, probably?
Yeah.
Who's going to second?
I second.
Okay. Discussion.
Thank you. I thought that there was going to be some kind of presentation by the administration with respect to the 5-year plan. But
I believe there is.
there is? Okay, so that's in here?
New business?
New business.
New business.
Okay,
So that's the healthcare transformation.
okay, good.
Topic.
I believe so.
All right, sounds good. With that,
Okay, can I also make a suggestion? I'd like to add, under new business, a work session, midweek work session for the board. Number 2.
That would be an amendment, and it
I'd
would be
like
a
to make
second, and then a vote to amend. So
Okay, I'd
it
like
would be
to-
a motion to amend the agenda by adding a work session portion to the agenda.
Point of clarification, Madam Chair.
Yes.
I think what I hear Mrs. Heron saying is that she would like that we schedule a work session in advance, not that we do one tonight. Is that correct?
Correct.
Is
Yes,
that correct? So you want that scheduled tonight for us to come up with a schedule for that?
Yes.
Okay.
So I'd like to make an amend. I'd like to amend. Is that okay?
Yeah,
Or do I-
then it's, I misunderstood. We don't have to amend
No,
the agenda.
no.
We
Just
can
add.
handle that.
Just an add.
We can handle that during next scheduled meeting discussion.
announce it and then schedule it.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
I have a couple of comments, Madam Chair.
Yes. Commissioner Pollard.
First of all, I've tried for a long time to get an item on the agenda like committee of the whole or other, such as was used by a committee, the finance committee a couple of times back, where things come up during the meeting or you think of something during the meeting and you can interact right at that meeting without, well, you've taken the position now that a commissioner cannot go and speak as a citizen in the public comment section, which is a departure from past practice. But in that case, there should be an item on the agenda where commissioners can bring up things like Mrs. Heron just mentioned. Let's have a work session, etc. Ideas like that should be able to be brought up as part of the meeting. I'd like to see if we could just add
Yeah,
other.
I don't understand what you're asking, Commissioner Pollard, because we just did that. We allowed her to make that.
You allowed her to, but I'd like to see on the agenda an item called other or an item called committee of the whole, which is what the city of Snoqualmie uses and many other organizations, and it's even mentioned in our bylaws.
Do you have a motion or an amendment?
We have
an amendment?
I would just, what I would do is just take that under advisement and indicate that that could be a topic for next month's agenda. That the next month's agenda could reflect that.
Commissioner Pollard, are you asking for this to be on as a regular item, or are you asking for it to be on for a specific reason?
No, I asked her to be on as a regular item. I've asked for months, if not years, that we have an opportunity on the agenda to bring up items that are not on the agenda, to be able to speak to new issues that may have come up during the meeting or otherwise. And our bylaws provide mention the words committee of the whole. It's used by the city of Snoqualmie for that purpose. So if Mr. Rodney is suggesting that we put that on the agenda for next time to discuss whether we should add that as a regular agenda item, is that what I hear you suggesting, Mr. Rodney?
Yeah, or you know, that's something that can actually be, you know, the way we've done our agendas, it's the president has met with the CEO, and then, you know, prior to that meeting, that president has solicited agenda items from the other commissioners, and so then they put together to the agenda, and about a week ahead of time before the regular meeting. And so I would just recommend that this could be added the same way that.
Well, I have suggested that in exactly that way, and it has gone nowhere for months. So I would like to add it to tonight's agenda
I think
as an other or whatever, and if it does no harm, we could then continue it.
to do that as an amendment, are you making an amendment to
I
the
move
agenda?
that we add other to the agenda.
Okay. Second?
Second.
Discussion?
Yes, discussion.
Where would it go on the agenda?
Commissioner Pollard, where do you think it would go in the agenda?
It would go as the last item on the agenda. Not the announcement about the next scheduled meeting would follow that. So the last item.
So it'd be after public comment?
Yes, if public comments is going to be that low on the agenda.
There are two public
We
comments.
have two public comments, which I don't quite understand, but perhaps instead of the second public comment, it could be other.
I believe the reason we have two public comments is so that if there's any business that we want to do, the public has an opportunity to comment. Then we could take that into consideration when we do action, and then they can comment afterwards, if I remember correctly.
That's right.
I think that's a good idea. The more public comment we get, the better. But I think we shouldn't silence commissioners from offering public.
Any more discussion?
Is there anybody else that would like to speak to the issue?
Again, what's on the table is a motion to amend the agenda to add other at the place designated. I think call for a vote?
Yes, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor say
Aye.
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 Opposed?
Aye.
You opposed?
No.
No. Aye? Okay, so everybody is.
Okay, but I have a question now that we have done this. Is this motion for this meeting only or ongoing?
Well,
I don't,
that,
Help
the
me out.
motion that was just enacted just as pertains to this meeting, but you still have to now approve the agenda as amended.
Yeah.
And so it's been moved and seconded, now discussion on the amended agenda.
I guess I didn't understand it was for this meeting. I thought it was for all future meetings.
Well,
Could you
what
clarify?
I suggested is why don't we put it on the agenda for this meeting, and if it goes well and there's no problem, continue it later. So I think I'll leave that to the chair and the superintendent to consider putting it on subsequent agendas if there's no harm done by having it.
Okay.
Okay.
So we've already voted and it's going to, correct? Did we not vote on it?
Yes.
All right, and everybody voted for it.
The agenda.
I have a couple more suggestions.
We still haven't voted on the agenda as amended. The
Yeah.
approving,
Thank you, Jim.
Well, I have another suggestion of amending the.
We have to take them one at a
We have to
time.
take them one at a time?
Yeah, we do.
Okay.
well, if you have another,
Yeah.
But one may pass and one may not. I mean, we may want one on the agenda and we may not want the other one on the agenda. So they have to be done each
his
individually.
motion, he needed to make a motion now for another amendment to the agenda.
Right.
Before we go.
Therefore,
Okay.
now, do we have two amendments passed at the moment?
No, only one.
And the one that was passed was to add other.
Other.
Right.
Yes.
What was the other amendment?
But you said you had another amendment.
Oh, okay, well, I thought we already had two. All right. My comment, amendment, or whatever is that under committee reports should be committee reports. And the action that is suggested here should be under new business. And that's the way we used to do it. I don't understand why we conflated action on recommendations of the committee as part of the committee report.
What is your motion, Jean? Commissioner Pollard, what is your motion? Motion.
I move that any action that is cited here by action required as noted under the title of committee reports be moved to new business.
Is there a second?
I second.
Well, Darren?
Is there a second?
Chairman.
Already.
Yeah, I know. Okay, so Emma seconded it.
Discussion?
Discussion?
I would just add that this.
You can't add anything, Commissioner Pollard. No, you've discussed it, so it's an opportunity for other commissioners if they feel
That's
moved.
true. If any other commissioner who wants to, but if nobody wants to, then I can speak again.
Yes, but we're
Right.
allowing some time for them to decide whether they want to speak to this or not.
Right.
Okay. What else would you like to offer?
Well, I'd just like to say this is the way we used to do it, and I don't recall that the board changed the way this is presented. In other words, it was always that any action coming out of the committee reports was under new business. Here, that conflated, isn't that correct?
Is that how it has been in the past?
That's what I'm asking Jay.
You know, we've changed our format a number of times to accommodate a number of different ideas over the last several years.
Mm-hmm.
So having public comment before and after was a suggestion by a commissioner. So that was done to accommodate a commissioner, and this has been done. We've had consent agendas. I mean, we've gone back and forth on so many different styles and formats. So this was just a way to efficiently deal with non-controversial matters right then and there during the committee reports.
If I could add, the reason we went to this action was that we're taking action as we discuss the committee items. So approval of warrants, we go through that discussion, the Finance Committee meeting, Finance Committee comments, and then we do an immediate action rather than wait and go through it all again later in the agenda.
Mm-hmm.
So it puts the action in at the same time as the discussion around that committee. And these are recurring every month kinds of things, so it's really not new business. It's just standard business of the commission every month.
Any other comments?
Yeah. Any other comments from any?
I'd just like to say that the committee report is different.
Commissioner Pollard?
Well, you just asked me to speak, didn't you?
No, I didn't. I was asking if any of the other commissioners had any other thoughts to contribute.
I happen to like having it right with the committee report so we don't have to repeat information.
Okay. Anybody else?
Yeah, but if it requires action, there should be some discussion among the board as well, besides just the committee members. So
Of course.
we never.
Well, that's why it's on the agenda, is so that the board can
Yeah, but
have
I guess what I'm
discussion.
saying is it should go right after the.
No, the order
Under
doesn't
new
matter.
business.
It's still a motion and discussion. It includes all of the above. I mean, it's no different. It's not handled any differently where it is on the agenda. There's plenty of opportunity for all commissioners to comment.
Yeah. Okay, so, pardon? Commissioner Pollard, would you like to restate what it is that you would like us to do?
I believe that there should be a separation between committee reports and the action that would be required by the committee's recommendation. Therefore, I'm recommending or asking that the bylaws, or rather the agenda, be amended to move the action part of this to new business.
Yes,
That's the way we used to do it, and we never discussed that we were going to change it.
Okay. So it's time for a vote. All those in favor of this amendment say yes.
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 Those not in favor say no.
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 Motion passed.
So it doesn't pass. Thank you, Commissioner Pollard.
I make the motion to move along.
Well, we still haven't approved the agenda.
No, we
So
haven't.
now we have the motion on the table now is to approve the agenda as amended.
And the amendment is that we have committee,
No, other.
other, that's right, other. And where were we going to put other?
Just above, next legal meeting.
Okay, got it. All right, all those in favor of the agenda with the amendment of other under public comment in between next scheduled meeting, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. The next matter of business will be the election of officers. Do I have, okay.
Entertain nomination for
Yes,
president?
can I entertain nomination for president?
I make the nomination
Oh,
for President Daryl Norris.
I will second it.
Actually, you don't need to.
Okay.
Any other
well,
nominations?
there needs to be a second.
No.
I seconded.
It does not, there does not need to be a second when doing officers.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Okay.
Okay, well,
I'd like to nominate Emma Herron as president of the board.
Okay, so we will take a vote then for Daryl Norris and then for Emma Herron. Are there any other nominations? Okay, all those in favor of Daryl Norris, say aye.
Aye.
All those in favor of Emma?
You have to
Herron?
call for opposed, don't you?
Yes, nay. All those,
No, no, that's not what I just learned this week. We find out how many are in favor of one and how many are in favor for the other, and the one that's
That's right.
the majority.
Right.
Okay, so all those in favor of Emma Herron?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so it's 3 for Daryl Norris and 2 for Emma Herron. Daryl Norris is taking the place of president. Okay, and do we have nominations for vice president?
I nominate Emma Herron as vice president.
Do we have any other nominations? I would like to nominate Joan Young for vice president. Are there any other nominations? All those in favor of Emma for vice president, say yay. Yes. Those in favor of Joan, say yay.
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 Joan Young is vice president by majority vote. Now I'd like to ask for nominations for secretary. Are there any nominations for secretary?
I move that Emma Herron be named secretary of the board.
I move that David Spikers be secretary of the board.
Okay, are there any other nominations? All those in favor of Emma Herron?
Aye.
Aye. 2. Any others? All those in favor of David Spikers, say aye.
I'm
Aye.
Aye.
3, David Spikers is going to be our secretary.
Point of clarification, Madam Chair.
Yes, Commissioner Pollard.
I think it was a year ago, we decided that there should not be a person holding both positions of secretary and treasurer.
I don't have treasurer down as a position for us to vote for.
Secretary.
Steve Daniel is the district treasurer. Prior to Steve Daniel being treasurer, it was the King County. And it really needs to be either King County or our CFO to manage the day-to-day cash flows in between the different accounts and so forth. And it also requires a surety bond, which it would be difficult to obtain a surety bond for a commissioner to engage in those duties. So Steve Daniel is our official.
No, I think that's fine, but didn't Mr. Spikers sign papers during this last year as treasurer?
No, he did as secretary.
I know he's the duty of the secretary, so that's fine.
Yeah.
Okay.
Steve, so now would that be listed somewhere so that people know who the treasurer of the board is? Where would that be?
It's treasurer of the district.
treasurer of the
Treasurer of
district.
the district, rather. Where would that appear?
I don't know. Good question. I mean, we could put it on our website, I would imagine. Yeah.
Yeah, let's put it on the website. I think the public should know who the treasurer is.
Thank you, Commissioner Pollard. Next item of business is to do the committee assignments. And I want to say a little bit about this. There are no good direction in the bylaws. In fact, it would appear that over quite some time the bylaws have not been followed when it comes to committee assignments. So committee assignments right now in the bylaws are 1 year. So what we're going to do, which you'll notice on your bylaws, a revision, one of the committees we are going to be voting for is to have a committee ad hoc for the bylaw, or for doing a bylaws update. And I believe we've checked with legal counsel that we can do that. So first will be committee assignments, will be finance committee. There's no direction in the bylaws of how to select the committees and how to do that, and protocol has been that the president does it.
Point of order, Madam Chair.
Yes.
The bylaws say that the board will appoint the members of the committee. If you'll look at the bylaws.
I did look at the bylaws, and I don't think I brought them.
The board will appoint it. There's nothing that says the board chair or the president will
We've
appoint.
got a copy right here. Traditionally, the president has made the appointments to the committees, and that's been the course of practice ever since the district, since I've been
Then we
around.
violated the bylaws.
No, I don't think
Also,
so.
if you look at Robert's Rules of Order, it said that committee assignments should be by motion and vote.
I think he's right about it being the board, but I just figured that the board approved of it.
Two wrongs don't make a right. If we've been setting the wrong precedent, we need to correct it right now.
Well, if we don't have any guidelines, it makes it difficult to correct it.
Well, the guidelines are that the board makes the appointment. You are not the board.
And also the chairpersons of the committees will be appointed by the board, not that the members designated to those committees will be determined by the board. And I would say that because of the practice, the course of dealing and the course of practice over the last 10 years, that the board president can continue until such time as the bylaws are revised to make any changes to that practice.
I think the bylaws should be modified to update what the board feels it would be good in the future and clarify that. I think that's really, really important. Because Gene does have a point.
Yeah.
If it's muddled right now,
It is.
let's get it clarified. Let's get the bylaws updated.
Yeah, and I'd like to see that all board members participate and give their feedback, input, not just one or two. I think all of us should be involved.
Oh, I think so. I think that's what's happened in the past also.
So that could be included in maybe in the work session that we will schedule, hopefully.
Okay. All right, so right now the item on the agenda is committee assignments, and so these are the assignments that I made. Finance Committee, David Spikers, Daryl Norris. Medical Committee, Joan and Emma. Facilities Committee, continue with Gene Pollard, unless he doesn't want to do this, or if anybody doesn't want to do this, then you need to let me know. Quality Improvement has been Joan Young, and I would also like to add myself to that. I have not been on this, and it's not every month, and so I'd like to add my own name to that. And then Bylaws Revision at Hawk would be Jay Rodney, David Spikers, and Emma Heron.
I will serve if all of us can participate.
We can all...
I would not feel comfortable if I'm the only one, or me and just the three of us.
I don't... I think before we participated, we didn't all meet together. As soon as we meet together, it has to be public, which I don't know if there's a problem with that or not. But generally, we met, David sent it out, we all made comments, he went through the comments and played them and sent them out again. So a lot of it was done via email. I don't know about...
So, I think every commissioner certainly is going to, will have the opportunity for input into the bylaw revisions. We just want to get an initial revised draft out to all the commissioners for comment. That's the purpose of the bylaw committee.
Point of order, Madam Chair.
Yes, Commissioner
I
Pollard.
oppose the ad hoc committee. I've sent you a message as to how I would propose that we do it.
I don't think I saw that. Okay.
And
I didn't.
basically what I'm saying is that I think that, first of all, we've been violating the Open Public Meetings Act with the interchange of emails.
Because they're addressed to everybody. I noticed that.
That's a
Yes.
violation of the Open Public Meetings Act.
Technically, it's not, because there's no action being conducted, and there's no, you get into the problem when there's more than 3 or more commissioners on an email, and it's reply all, and then there's another reply all. I haven't seen extensive, I've not seen I've not seen any reply alls. There's been one email that come out.
I understand, Madam Chair.
It's really not, it's not a violation of the
Reply all violation, and I don't think that's what we're talking about here. It's that there has been an exchange of emails, and according to the MSRP, Municipal Research and Service Center, that exchanges of emails can be violations of the Open Public Meetings Act. And in the way we have done it, I believe it has been a violation, because we've gone back and forth on ideas suggested and so forth.
But we haven't taken any action, correct?
No, it's not an issue of action, it's an issue of discussion also.
And Madam President, I think that point's well taken.
Yeah.
And we need to minimize email communications, and that's a point well taken, and we can move on.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner Pollard.
As I heard Mrs. Heron speak, she does not want to be on the ad hoc committee.
Is that correct, Emma?
Yeah, I'm very new right now, so I would prefer, maybe I'd like to, maybe, I would like to yield to Joan to do the bylaw.
Sure.
Okay.
David, want me?
Whoever is assigned, I can work with any of you.
Okay.
Do you want to do that? I'd
Sure.
do it if you didn't want to. I said I'd do it if you didn't want to.
No, I'll do it.
Okay. All righty. Then we'll put Joan on instead of Emma. Commissioner Young. I'm sorry. Okay, approval of the minutes of the December 3rd, 2015. Yes, we're going to table that. I don't know how much information Val was able to get off the recorder, so that is.
It's a matter of equipment. I still need one piece of equipment to make the system work.
Okay.
And that will not arrive until Monday.
Okay, all right. Then we will be looking for that in the next meeting.
Thank you.
Communications is next on our agenda. I do not have any communications. Roger McCollum, our superintendent.
Okay, since the administrative executive team has a lot of comments later on, I'm going to keep this real short, because we have quite a program for the commissioners and for the public. And by the way, thank you for all the public that showed up tonight. I think it's going to be really important that you all get involved in the transformation of healthcare here in the Snoqualmie Valley. But how long have you been in the district now?
14 and a half.
I was approaching 15 years with the hospital district. And what an achievement that is, number one. But we were reminiscing the other day about some of the good old days. And when Val started, the hospital had no patients. It had no operations. There was no ED. There was no physicians. Nothing. They were in the process of setting up a geriatric psych unit, and maybe 3 or 4 months after she started, we actually had a patient in the old hospital. The day I started, Dr. Wickoff and I started about almost 12 years ago. My first day we had 1 patient, and her name was Betty, and it was such a rare occurrence that I remember her name even today. We had no clinics. We had no ED. We had essentially no acute portion of the hospital. We did have some geriatric psych patients in the hospital, which allowed us to keep our license. Today, we have specialty care, we have a very robust primary care presence in the valley, and we have a new hospital, a beautiful new hospital that we've completed, moved into. And in the month of December, we have 25 beds. As a critical access hospital, we're limited to 25 setup beds, and that's what's contained in the new hospital. If you take 31 days times 25 beds, that's a total maximum bed count of 775 bed days. We filled 768 of those. We only had 7 bed days in the entire month that were open in capacity for patients. So we ran a census of 99.1%. So how does it get any better than that? Well, this month, our average census is 25. We filled every bed every day so far this month, and it looks like that will continue because we have such a waiting list of patients wanting to get into the hospital. In addition, the emergency department is continually increasing. We're seeing a wide range of acute care, and for this quarter, we've increased the number of patients coming to the ED every month. And for the month of January, in a period that, seasonally, we sometimes take a dip in the winter, we're actually running a very healthy patient flow through the ED this month. So the second thing I want to comment on is that we will be presenting a very robust presentation in a few minutes called Transformation of Healthcare in the Snoqualmie Valley for the next 5 years. And hopefully we'll get to that very quickly, and I think you're all going to enjoy it. We want it to be participative. There will be a question with the Commissioner's permission. I would also like to open it up for questions after we finish. There is a public comment period, but I would welcome questions that we could have a give and take if members of the public want to address any of the executive staff that do the presentation.
Point of clarification, Madam Chair.
Yes, Commissioner Pollard.
At the beginning, I heard you mention 15 years, and then I heard you say that you were part of the district here for 12 years. I thought that you're approaching 10 years. I don't understand.
Well, that's 3 strikes. I talked about Valerie being here almost 15 years. I've been here almost 12 years.
You've been CEO or superintendent for 12 years?
Correct, almost approaching it now.
Well, I thought you came in, what was it, 2004, wasn't it?
Correct. This is 2016.
Good, so.
All right, thank you. Just to clarify, yeah.
Okay.
Okay. All right, committee reports. Finance Committee, David Spikers, Commissioner Spikers.
Thank you. We're above most projections that we anticipated on our budget for this year. 12% above inpatient. I suspect after December it'll probably be even higher than that. Emergencies up 1.7%. Endoscopies up 36%. Outpatient is down 30% below projections. Some of this is due to is diet related. My understanding it's actually a very specific reason, the food that we're giving them. So, and I could not comment how that works because I'm not exactly a hospitalist like that was explained in the finance meeting very carefully to us, but that was one of the biggest reasons. I do believe that the outpatient will be is anticipated to increase at some point, and I'm keeping an eye on that. I have been for quite some time. We lost about $200,000 in November. However, it's still way above what we were thinking about, what we were actually going to lose. We are well above our projections for when we projected last November's budget. We didn't know if the hospital was going to even open. We didn't know if we were going to get financing. A lot of things were kind of up in the air. And we had I.E. Bailey studies, and they projected a certain amount. We're about pretty much all of those projections. We anticipated somewhere around 19 to 20 for the average for the year, and we're at, I think, 21 or over 21 for the year, and it looks like this year we could be 22 or 23, 24 out of patients per day in 25 beds. I'm hoping, and there's going to be a presentation, because most of our patients are Medicare, Medicaid, self-pay or no-pay, charity care. Near a public hospital, we take everybody that comes to our door. That's our job. That's the law. And unfortunately, it's really hard to make money on that other 30%. And I'm really looking forward to the presentation today to see what we're going to be able to do. I think I was looking at Jim. Is Jim here today?
Yeah.
Jim gave me some figures about some other critical access hospitals throughout the state, and almost every one of them is underwater, except a few. Unfortunately, we don't have the what the smaller communities can do. They can go back to the taxpayers and get more money because maybe that's the only hospital in the county. So we have to be extremely careful how we spend our monies. And I'm giving you kind of an overview of what we're doing in the Finance Committee. Our oversight is Jim, as a citizen, has been on the committee. Robert Merkel is also on the committee. He was not at the last meeting, but he always has some good input for all of the commissioners on the committee. And I think if we also had some follow-up questions on other expenses and that kind of thing, and we're following up on that. I've had some emails going back and forth with Jim and Steve, and I know I'm going to be following up with some of the other expenses, where they're coming from, whatnot. So other than that, I think I will open it up to any other questions from the commissioners. I believe that how the format, I just want to let people know the format I think is going to be good. We have a citizen or citizens on the committee, the two commissioners. They will have the opportunity to make questions and ask questions, I should say. And then if there's anybody else that wants to be there at the end of the meeting, they can go ahead and ask the question pertinent to what we were talking about of the meeting. But the business is going to be conducted without public comment at the committee. I think we didn't even have these open at all to public. And I think the way it's going now is being very transparent and a great opportunity for the community to learn more about what is going on financially in the district.
I think the best way to describe it is a working committee meeting. It is not just a ad hoc. It's working. So because we're having a discussion, there isn't any additional public discussion.
And it's here. It's here.
Yeah, and it is here. So anybody's welcome to come.
Now, I think what the superintendent was saying is that public discussion will take place in the board meeting. Is that what you were saying, Mr. Superintendent?
No, we were talking about public comments during the Finance Committee.
During the Finance Committee.
Right, I understand. Okay.
I got a little worried at one point, and I think asking questions after the meeting without suggestions, maybe might be okay. If there's some specific question that needs to be addressed from the Finance Committee, from anybody, would be fine. But You gotta be
Right.
very careful about making suggestions during that as commissioners that are now participating as
Part of the
committee
meeting.
members.
Yeah, committee.
So,
Okay.
Yeah, Commissioner Spikers, the auditor has come back to us, and we might have to make some modifications to the Finance Committee meeting. We're going to have a conference call with the auditor. No other public hospital district in the state has open Finance Committee meetings, so this is a first for them that they're grappling with in how to ensure compliance with the OPMA. So we're going to have a conference call with the auditor probably next week, and then we'll be back in touch with the commissioners to give you all what their suggestions are.
okay, we just want to
Thank
be
you.
as transparent as we can, but
Yeah.
then again, we don't want to
Violate
get in any kind
anything.
of trouble with
Right.
the Hearings Act, so.
Okay.
Well, there's been legislation and recommendations by MSRP that all committee meetings be open. And the way the city of Snoqualmie does it is their finance committee is public and open to all commissioners. Because it's a public meeting, all commissioners can attend and they can ask questions.
It seems to me
Now,
we need,
This is only the second meeting in this format, and I think we're learning as we go along. And I do appreciate the fact that the public is allowed to come for the first time, starting last month, to the Finance Committee meetings.
Yeah.
I have a specific question about the other category, and I know you said that some of these minor things we're going to clarify, but one of the things that concerns some of us is there was a $20,000 credit card debt, and will the other commissioners and the public be able to see what those debts are for?
Well, that can be achieved with a public disclosure request, but I did get a summary of some of the items on there, and as you know, there is spending authority via credit card versus trying to get cash in your hand sometimes, or making out a check when the check writer's not
Yeah,
there.
I don't mind the method. It's just, what's
there-
the substance? What are the purchases?
There were about 160 items, I believe, in that 20,000, and there was probably a quarter of them were, well, maybe a fifth of them were travel and education expenses. I've asked for a supplement of 5 additional credit card statements dating back to June. I was going to take a look at that. Jim is actually helping me out on that. Steve, go ahead.
Yeah, we sent those to you. I just quickly perused them. There was travel and trading, and quite a bit of facility-related expense.
Yes.
It's much, you do a repair on a car or repair on something, it's easier to use a credit card. So that's where the majority of it is.
It was. I didn't see anything odd. It just, I did request some follow-up statements, and Jim is actually helping me out a little bit, kind of looking at them, and we are going to be meeting on Monday.
Very good. Madam Chair, the
Yes,
minutes
Commissioner
that were
Paul.
written about that committee were done by Tom Parker, and they are excellent. Commend them, Joe.
no,
Jay, did you write those minutes?
He did.
I thought Tom
I
did.
can either deny or confirm that.
I can confirm it. I watched him.
He did do it.
Well, that's great. They are great minutes, and I hope the public will read them. The one that concerns me is the one that says our long-term debt is $98 million. You know, when we first got into this building a new hospital business, we were going to sell our old hospital for $30 million. We were going to build a new hospital for $38.6 million, call it a replacement hospital, and somehow we've gone from there to $98 million. And we have 2 members of the board who forgave the tribe $14 million, and it just seems like the debt is pretty heavy.
Thank you, Commissioner Pollard, for that additional information and concern.
I'm not finished, Madam Chair, and that is that no matter how well we perform or what we do, we're really subject to the whims of the federal government, and the President's budget has now been passed in the President's budget is a provision in the Department of Health and Human Services Department's budget that says that critical access hospitals that are within 10 miles of another hospital will not be able to continue with the enhanced payments. Jay, are you familiar with
Yeah,
that?
the President's budget is not been passed, but I think also, we're going to address all this in the executive team's presentation tonight. One thing that's going to have to be, that will clarify is that $98 million figure, only half of that is taxpayer debt. The other half is not.
There's revenue bonds.
Yeah,
which
the
the
taxpayers are not on the hook for that at all.
It's still a debt on the hospital, is it not?
But not on the taxpayers.
Not on the taxpayers, but on the hospital.
I think that's a really important distinction to make.
I agree. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Pollard and Jay. Next is the Medical Committee. Joan?
Okay, we don't have an action item on the...
What do we need to do? Oh, approve the warrants, that's right. David?
I make a motion to approve the warrants as has been proposed,
I second it.
reviewed, and cross-reference to the expenditures in the finance meeting notes and ledgers.
I think we've already had some discussion on that. Is there anybody else that has any other discussion on that other than Commissioner Pollard?
I'm going to vote against this.
I do have a question.
Yes, Emma?
I know that
Commissioner, go ahead.
you do have bank statement that you get for the credit card. Is there a cross-reference like receipts as well? Original receipts?
For the 20,000 you're talking about?
Yes, just going back to that.
I don't have any receipts. I have the statement with the,
Roger says, Superintendent McCollum says that there is receipts. There are receipts. There are receipts.
Yeah, that it should be included regardless, so that you can cross-reference them.
Well, we
I know.
do hire staff to do that.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry.
Okay, Madam Chair.
Commissioner Pollard, let me see if anybody else has anything
Yeah, sure.
to say, please.
Of course.
Is there anyone else that has any comments before we do the warrants? Are we ready to pass the warrants?
Madam Chair, I had a comment. You were waiting to see if anybody else.
Yeah, well, I thought you'd already commented once before. What in addition do you have to say, Commissioner Pollard?
I would like to say that I'm going to vote against this. I would ask that in the future there be a separation in the salaries between the non-exempt and the exempt employees, because I think that our organization is top-heavy and we're paying excessive monies to certain executives. But I do want to vote in favor of the salaries for the line employees and the caregiving staff and so forth. So I think by lumping it together, it puts me in an awkward position of having to vote against the whole proposition. So I'd appreciate it in the future if that would be separated.
We will take that under consideration.
Thank you.
Commissioner Pollard. Okay, are we ready to vote for the warrants?
Yes.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
No.
Abstain.
In the future, and I should have said this before, we are going to do roll call so that Valerie has an opportunity to know who voted what and how they voted on what it was.
That's a good idea.
I'm sorry, Val. You and I talked about that and I forgot.
No problem.
Okay. Okay, next we have facilities. Or, no, medical. Joan.
Okay, well, I'm going to read from the report with a little explanation. The first item, we had a recent loss that was back in the first part of December during the storm of CenturyLink fiber internet, and it revealed some operations vulnerabilities that had not been apparent previously, i.e. computers, nothing worked. And it had something to do with water and a swamp and the cable. So a lot of work has been done to find alternative solutions via Comcast cable lines. In December, there were 14 new employees oriented. The survey plans of correction were accepted by DOH. The New Hospital Group Solutions Group continues to meet weekly to assure completion of all projects related to New Hospital. Focus now shifting more to documenting or refining process nearing the end of work. High frequency of complete occupancy is driving conversations and research into the best approach to bed management in regard to competition for an open bed between swing bed patients and ED patients. We are currently in the planning process for an inpatient dialysis services.
I want to go back a little bit. The swing bed and the ED patients, the issue is that if they're all filled with swing bed, we cannot take in people that have come into our emergency room. So we're trying to make sure that we have a bed or two available. We have beds so that those patients that come in due to an emergency situation don't have to go down to Swedish, don't have to go to Overlake, they can stay here. So we're juggling, trying to figure out how to do that. So that's just a little more explanation for that.
All right.
And actually, that did work. We oftentimes were at 24, and we did have admissions out of the ED and to raise it to the 25.
Good. Okay. All right. We're in planning process for inpatient dialysis services for swing bed patients entering an accelerated phase of preparation. The goal currently is for implementation in February or March. And we now have a contract with Secure Horizons, one of the major Medicare insurers for swing bed. Anyway, they've been petitioning for inclusion for several years, and they finally widened their network. Okay, the Lab Quality Assurance Commission survey plans of correction were accepted, and they're exploring acquisition of an analyzer to replace visual reading process for drug screens via a reagent purchase agreement with a no-cost analyzer, which will be wonderful. The position is open for Director of Clinic Operations. I think it's still open. Anyone who has qualifications, put in an application. Review of importance being placed on primary care and current health care reform activities. Investments will be necessary. Snoqualmie, or the outreach service volumes at Regency North Bend are climbing every month. Our adult family home update. Coordinator is now fully certified to operate an adult family home.
John,
Yes.
pardon me. You went right through that one point, and I wanted to clarify on Regency North Bend. We're providing all of the physician services, I believe, in-house for skilled, not long-term, not their long-term care. So our physician is covering that. In addition, we're providing all of the lab services at Regency North Bend.
Yep. Okay, great. All right, back to the adult family home. Coordinator is now fully certified to operate. Opportunity recently presented to Lisa Home that has nearly completed the certification process with the state and will shorten the time from possibly over 18 months to only a few months. Commissioners have a question.
I do. I've been interested in that because my understanding is it'll shift from the Medicaid to Medicare mostly for potentially up to 3 patient days per day. And that will mean an increase in benefits to the hospital by quite a bit. So,
and the difference, what the benefits are, one, we're going to get paid, those will free up swing beds that we would get paid a higher amount for, and then we will get paid a significant amount for the home health. Am I correct on that?
There's a recent development today. Tom was able to come to, I think, the best terms we're going to get for that, and that will be actually coming out to the commissioners as a term sheet and then on to a lease. And we'll probably need to schedule a special meeting here within the next week or two to approve that, to move forward.
Good. Point of clarification. What the heck are we talking about? I heard a minute ago about the 3 midnight stay leading to better Medicare reimbursement. Is that what you were talking about?
yes. If you recall the last 2 meetings that we've had some status briefing on that. And it was regard to 3 potential bed spaces being able to be transferred to off-site facility.
Oh, you're talking now about the adult family?
Right, yes.
Yeah, okay. I have a
So
question
then we
about
would
that.
be able to Yeah.
Yeah, and that is, would we be then asking for the full cost reimbursement in the adult home
No.
environment?
No.
Then we'll be competitive with other adult?
Yeah, and we would be the same price, we wouldn't, or, yeah, we get reimbursed at a very.
So we would not get enhanced reimbursement?
No.
No.
Since we're a critical
No.
access hospital?
No.
That's actually why we're doing it, is so that we can move those longer-term patients that are in extended stay mode out of the hospital, so we can keep those beds open for ED admissions or people that are critically ill and need the bed.
Okay, that's very good. And I think it's excellent that we're considering adult family home. We need to consider home health care. We need to consider hospice, palliative care, and more services for the elderly, since I am one.
Absolutely, and those are great strategic planning items.
Yeah.
Commissioner Herron, I believe you'd like to say something?
Yeah, I will have to ask lots of questions, but I'm just listening.
That's okay.
In terms of the adult family home, how many beds is it licensed for?
Ours will be in the 3 or 4.
Up
I
to
think
4?
there's a maximum of 6 allowed by the state.
I think
Yeah.
so.
And where is it located? Because I don't even know.
North
The
Bend.
one we're looking at is in North Bend.
Is it?
And we, actually, Tom's plan was we ran the adult family daycare at the senior center in Carnation. They closed that down, so we took that RN that was running that for us, that was on our payroll, and he had her go through the training and the certification to be an adult family home administrator, and that's the person that we're going to put in that home.
So that person will also be the resident manager?
Correct, and we just have to lease the space now.
That was the nurse that was serving the Snow Valley Senior Center, is now going to become the manager of the. That's very interesting. They're struggling over there in Carnation with their adult daycare. They're only running it 3 days a week now.
That closed last August.
It closed, so they moved it off-site to a nearby church. But they're struggling very hard to meet the needs of the people with an adult daycare program, and they need our help. Many other hospitals offer in-house adult daycare programs, and I think we ought to consider that in our strategic planning process.
Okay, we need to move on. We have a presentation yet to happen.
I have questions about this presentation, however, Madam Chair.
About the medical committee?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Now, who is Secure Horizons?
It's one of the major
Medicaid.
Medicaid primarily.
Medicaid HMO.
Medicare.
Okay.
It's a managed care plan for Medicare.
Did we advertise the position of the Director of Clinical Operations?
Heavily.
Is that
Heavily.
been advertised publicly?
Heavily.
Pardon?
Heavily.
Yes.
Heavily.
Very good. Okay. And let's see. Yeah. I guess the only other thing is that the board never took an action to have an adult family home, and I would feel more comfortable if that had been a discussion and an action item on the part of the board.
Well, if you'll recall, we're doing the preliminary work, and it will come to the board. And as I just mentioned, we're probably going to have a special meeting within the next week or two to consider going into a contract for an adult family home, a lease.
Well, I think that's fine. That has to do with the facility. But in the meantime, we've hired or hired a director, and we're getting all this set up. I think
We didn't hire her. She was already employed.
She's already employed.
Just
Well, I just feel that before we get to the point of saying we're going to have an adult family home, it should have been a matter of discussion before the board.
Well, part of the idea of committees, too, is that committees do the detail work, and then it comes to the board. And I think it's been we've reported from the very beginning what we were doing.
That's fine, except the board has never taken action that they will support an adult family home. And it's up to the board. The decisions cannot be made in committee.
I believe next month,
It's
if
operations.
It's operation.
operations. Okay.
We haven't made,
There's been no decisions.
there's been no decision, but I want to point out that we don't make decisions on clinic openings, outreach lab programs. In fact, we didn't make a board decision when we supplied the nurses for the adult day health program in Carnation. That's operations. We don't decide the operations, we
I think the
govern.
board should decide whether they're gonna have an adult family home in a
I
board
do.
meeting.
I
Yeah,
agree.
we will.
And you will.
There will.
You will.
We're going to have a term sheet with all of the background information presented to us 1 week at least before the board meeting next month. And we will be able to look it over, make an informed decision when the time comes, so.
With a complete pro forma prepared by Steve and Jim.
Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay. We need
I lost where we are. Okay.
position credentialing.
Are you done? Position credentialing? Dr. Whitcomb?
Switch microphones.
The Medical Executive Committee met on December the 14th, and so we reviewed all of the applicants, and here they are to present to you. First is Dr. Enrique Iguadinos. This is for initial application to provisional medical staff. He worked in the emergency department, or he will be working in the emergency department when this is passed, and is recommended for approval. There were no issues in his background or his application. We did have one provisional medical staff member who was eligible for transition to active medical staff, and that's Dr. Jim Watson, a cardiologist. Again, no issues identified and recommendation for approval. We had one provisional staff member who requested to be transitioned to courtesy staff, and that's Dr. Mark Flegger, who's one of our teleradiologists. Again, we've known Mark for a long time and no issues there, and recommend approval. We had 4 medical staff members of the affiliate staff, and they are due for re-credentialing, and that is Karen Lejean, Rachel Robeson, Ken Winslow, and Patty Ettenberg. They are all 4 nurse practitioners, family nurse practitioners, and again, recommend approval. They are all, 3 of the 4 are employed by us. And the final is a courtesy staff member who was due for re-credentialing, and that's Dr. Mary Schrock, and also recommend for approval.
Thank you.
I move that we accept the position credentialing as presented by Dr. Whitcup.
I seconded. Is there discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Unanimous. Next on the agenda is the Facilities Committee.
Yeah, I have to apologize to the superintendent and to the public here because I really made a mistake in the first paragraph. I'd just like to delete that to save time here. But apparently there was a misunderstanding on my part of whether the Facilities Committee would meet again. And we are meeting this month on the 18th, is that correct? Mr. Superintendent
He has stepped out temporarily. Yeah.
18th, I believe. So I just want to delete paragraph 1 and apologize to the superintendent because I was wrong on when I said that we had unilaterally dissolved the committee. It's just that the committee has not been meeting. We're going to switch to a quarterly meeting schedule. So, but there are some issues that have come from previous meetings that I'd like to clear up. Mr. Superintendent, I just apologize for paragraph 1 on the facilities report and explain that it was my problem.
They didn't have a meeting.
On the second item there, however,
Excuse me, Commissioner Pollard, does everybody have a copy of this?
I think you do. I passed them out.
It's that one with the...
Okay, so with respect to item 2, signage issues, I've been talking with Tom Parker for quite a while about the fact that there's a sign going into the hospital road there that says dead end. And to me, that's great for a cemetery, but not for a hospital. And I think also not for the young men that are down at Echo Glen that might have had a dead end, and we hope that it's not going to be a dead end now that they're getting some rehabilitation. So I was asking Tom, is there some other verbiage we could use that the state would buy?
No outlet.
Not a through street or some other verbiage so we can get that dead end as you enter the hospital there out of sight. Tom, did you?
Well, we're in conversations right now with the city on other sign issues, and we'll include that in those conversations.
Thank you. By the way, Emma Heron was mentioning to me tonight that she did not see a blue H sign on the freeway. Do we not have one there? There's one?
Yep.
Coming eastbound on I-90, there is a H. Okay, very good.
What area? Is it before the exit?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And on Highway 18, and on the Parkway.
Both directions.
Yeah, I think the main concern was I-90, the major overhead sign
Good,
there,
sir.
but it does have an H sign. Very good. Okay, the former bank building, Seafirst, Bank of America, where we had our rehab facility, there's still signs there that say Snoqualmie Valley Hospital. It's been a couple of months. Are we going to remove those?
I asked Scott to have that removed today.
Oh, excellent. Thank you. All right. At one of our recent meetings, there was a discussion about how we need to coordinate with the Snoqualmie tribe better with facilities and other things, because they are operating a family clinic successfully and have been doing so for several years in North Bend next to Ace Hardware. And Jay Rodney did a nice email and proposal about meeting with the tribal authorities. Has that gone anywhere, Jay?
Not yet. They've not really responded to that. I think that there's a lot of turmoil going on right now in the tribe, but I'll follow up with them again.
Thank you very much. I had a citizen complaint, anonymous, by telephone, where the citizen said that on the second floor lobby of our hospital, there's a painting there or a watercolor that says Old Town Snoqualmie 1910 or something like that, and she said it's clearly North Bend. And yes, sir.
There are actually two plaques on those watercolors that are incorrect, and new plaques are in production now.
Oh, excellent. I was going to have David Batty or invite David Batty or the Snoqualmie Valley Historical Society come up and check all of our identification, and but you've already taken care of it. That's very good. Thank you. Since the person was anonymous, I don't know how to get back there until it's been taken care of. So I just taking the liberty here, I'd like to suggest that we look for opportunities for utilization of the hotel lobby for things like art exhibits, musical concerts. I can just imagine the Snoqualmie Valley Girls Chorus lining those steps, and we've got a grand piano there, and getting into community events like that in that large and beautiful lobby. Now, I don't know whether we need to have an ad hoc committee for that kind of thing, but I'd just like to take this opportunity to make that suggestion.
We have reached out to Danny Coakley at Boxley's, and he'll be performing a number of concerts over the year for families and patients. In addition, in the past, we've had high school choirs come in and perform around the holidays, so we'll look for opportunities to start doing that again.
Have we ever had an art show up
I
there?
believe that when we put in the gift shop, that was one of the items that the gift shop was looking at, local art, that they were going to put on the
True, but I just
on the walls.
from that.
We've done art gallery and showcasing local artists for many years in the old hospital and the new hospital.
Good. And that connection, have we revitalized the Lunch and Learn program in terms of community outreach?
Not yet.
Are we going to do that?
No immediate plans, but yes, that's important. And that'll be part of our presentation tonight as well.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Pollard. Next is public comment. In the interest of fairness, we're going to make sure, we're going to time and make sure that 3 minutes is what you get for public comment. So okay, so Jay's going to help us with that. There was some discussion that maybe some people were allotted more time than others, and so to have that not happen, we will be timing. So is there any public comment? Going once. going twice. You sure nobody wants to say anything? Well, we're glad you're all here, regardless. We are glad that you are here and paying attention. All right. So now we will be moving on to new business. And I believe that's our executive staff.
Okay, I have some preliminary comments to make, and I'd like to address those, and then we'll get right into the 200 slides or so that we have for the presentation. I think that's good. Yeah.
No, I know he's not.
Good evening, commissioners, hospital district staff that's in attendance, and members of the community. Tonight, the executive administrative team of Snoqualmie Valley Hospital, King County Public Hospital District Number 4 is prepared and will present healthcare transformation for the Snoqualmie Valley the next 5 years. Many of you have heard or read about the revolution currently happening in healthcare. Healthcare as we have known it, have been paid for it, will be completely transformed. The timing of our research for tonight's presentation and the projections for the future that are in the current literature are very relevant to how the district will continue to provide health care for our communities. Our appreciation goes to Commissioner Spikers for raising the question, and to the other commissioners who have the responsibility for governing the organization through very turbulent times. Make no mistake, this has very significant consequences for all of us who live here and depend on the district for local health care. We have two primary goals for this evening. First, we will present the broadest representative survey of information that has been published to date. In addition, we will touch on the district's efforts to be included in the broader regional planning activities. Our goal is to give our commissioners and the public attending tonight's meeting the most current thinking by many experts in the process of transforming healthcare. I am stressing this as being the most current thinking because we are in the beginning stages of a healthcare revolution never before seen in the United States. You will hear from Tom Parker, our Chief Operating Officer, on bundled payments, population health, the triple aim, etc. Dr. Wyckoff will talk about the inaugural team of providers putting together the Overlake Provider Network, who will in turn be participants in the broader accountable care organization environment. She will also talk to us about the first efforts by rural hospitals to form our own statewide network accountable care organization. These are real decisions and real contracts this board will be taking under consideration very soon. Jay Rodney, our District General Counsel, will be giving us the latest updates in state and national political arenas concerning the movement from fee-for-service to value-based purchasing of healthcare services. Over time, this could be the largest impetus behind us actually leaving cost-based reimbursement. Steve Daniel, our Chief Financial Officer, will talk about our financial projections over the next 5 years and highlight the assumptions we are making to remain financially stable. He will also provide relevant information on our current method of Medicare and Medicaid cost-based reimbursement. I will be presenting both a broad overview and give a short summation at the end. Our second goal for tonight is to lay the foundation for beginning a very robust strategic planning process that will be continuous over the next few years. We have to be able to react quickly to changes in healthcare reform as they happen in real time, and they can only take place with the board and administrative staff fully engaged and in constant communication. In addition, we will need to have very active participation from the people that we deliver healthcare services to, that have a vested interest in how we respond to healthcare transformation. Our community and the population that we serve should have a very active role in this process as it unfolds. And so, let us begin. I have my hands. All right. Is this on? Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
All right. And I apologize if I'm standing in front of anybody. tonight is healthcare transformation. We're going to start and go through this overview in a series of starting with what we know today, what we expect to happen in the future. So to start with some healthcare economic facts. The U.S. healthcare tab topped for the first time $3 trillion in 2014, which is up 5.3% from 2013, according to the figures from the Office of the Actuary. Who knew we had an Office of the Actuary at CMS? We do. The average amount spent on each person averaged $9,523 last year, a per capita increase of 4.5%. And I want to show graphically what this means in terms of the increases in hospitals, the physician's clinical side, and prescription drugs. And as you can see, Big Pharma, which is the one we all love to hate, had the biggest whopping percentage increase, but everything increased over 2013. Healthcare represented 17.5% of the nation's GDP in 2014, up from 17.3% in 2013. So it's still going up as a percent of GDP. These next two slides I'm going to show graphically, and there's a pointer here. So the lighter areas here are the lesser spending per Medicare beneficiary nationally. So it looks like we're in pretty good shape here. Some other parts of the country are per capita-wise very heavily invested in Medicare total spending. But if you look at private insurer total spending per beneficiary, we're not quite so good. And the point that I want to make here is that we are higher here in the Pacific Northwest, not the highest, but certainly higher than we were in the Medicare spending. But what that means, we can interpret that as meaning that commercial insurance, private insurers are covering the cost of giving care to Medicare, Medicaid patients. And the point of that is that that won't be allowed to continue. The federal government is vowed to shift half of Medicare spending to alternative payment models by 2018. It will be several years before health policy experts understand just how well these payment reforms are working. And since the Affordable Care Act, or Obamacare first enrollment period in October 2013, more than 23 million people have gained coverage through the exchanges or Medicaid. Thus, Medicaid expenditures rose 11% in 2014, mostly on the federal side. And, for the first couple of years until 2017, the federal government's going to pick up this additional Medicaid expenditure. Then the burden starts shifting to the states that are participating in expanded Medicaid programs, including Washington. And Val, our neat little thing isn't working there.
What's not working?
The scrolling. So I don't know if you hit the...
No,
So I'll just continue on. In 2015, healthcare spending appears to be rising at an even faster rate. In the first 3 quarters, it's increased by 6%. Many economists and analysts are concerned that health plans are increasingly leaving people underinsured, and that can happen in several ways. They can have insurance, but they can have very high deductibles and very exclusionary type of plans. So they can be covered but not covered. So this was a survey of healthcare providers, hospitals, and physician practices. And it's asking what the expectation is for their organization in terms of going more at risk for self-pay ambulatory outpatient services. And the largest percentage of the polled respondents was that they expect, 55% expect an increase in the dollar level of self-pay from their ambulatory services, outpatient services. Critical access hospitals nationally make up 30% of the total of acute care hospitals. we receive only 4% of total Medicare payments to hospitals. In the state of this reformation that's going on, current developments show that hospitals carry the promise of health, hope, and healing, and the hospitals of the future will continue to extend that promise, but we'll need to do it in a lot of new ways, and those new ways we'll be listening to in our presentation tonight. Hospitals will do much more than just treat injury and illness. We're going to be moving into a population health, moving into health, good health and well-being. And that's the right thing. Keep people out of hospitals instead of waiting until they're critically ill. As communities contemplate health and the delivery of health care, meaning us, hospitals must become true community partners and work collaboratively with all kinds of stakeholders, other nonprofits, etc., in the community, for individuals to reach their highest potential for health. So it's not waiting until you get sick to go get care. It's how do you maintain your health at a very high level. And drivers of the Affordable Care Act from, was that past 2012? 13. So the issues were access, cost, and quality, and those are the things that we're really looking at today. The demand and response to these drivers are now reformed through both payment and delivery system reform, and we're seeing that, and we'll talk a lot about that tonight. So hospitals, as part of that, are using the triple aim. It was developed by the Institute for Healthcare Improvement, IHI, to help guide us as we look at different paths and approaches to healthcare reform as we improve the overall health for our community. So what is a triple aim? You're going to hear a lot about that. Basically, there are three parts of it: improving the experience of care for patients, involving patients and families and care teams to provide health care, giving patients the ability to navigate the health system. That would be unique. Moving toward proactive population health with strong focus on prevention and wellness, as we talked about. And the third one is to, of course, decrease costs overall. As we said, we cannot maintain 17.5% of our GDP going to healthcare. So this is a graphic that shows that in sort of easy to understand form. So we're looking at wellness and prevention over the population. We want to make sure that those patients that are getting care are happy about the care that they get and reducing overall costs. So we need to do more and be paid less. Simple. At the same time that we find ourselves in a decreasing healthcare reimbursement environment, our healthcare system will also be caring for an increasingly large, aging, and probably sicker population who will, baby boomers living longer and many patients experiencing multiple chronic conditions. And we see that every day in our swing bed acute care. We get some really sick people in that have multiple interacting kinds of diagnoses. To meet these challenges, we will use technological and medical advances to allow caregivers. And we've seen a lot of technology come on board, and there's a lot more coming, a lot more new developments and individualized care through genetic mapping and those kinds of things. So we'll see a lot of that in the future. So what's coming? Hospitals today are intently focused on exploring what it means to be a hospital in a rapidly transforming healthcare world, and we all are in this mode right now. And I think that's been the driver behind the huge amount of consolidation in hospital operations across the state and nation. The move from a fee-for-service to a value-based environment is prompting hospitals to focus on quality, good, embrace population health management, both attributed and geographic populations, and meaning our health and wellness and managing population health, and to promote more integrated, better coordinated care, which drives out costs. The goals are to improve the health of the community through increased access to primary care, appropriate admissions and reduce inappropriate readmissions, along with making measurable gains in improving outcomes of care and reducing harm, all of which add to the increase of cost of health care. The concept of population health began as a core responsibility for hospitals and health systems to keep their attributable population. And, I guess simply attributable population could be defined as whatever health plan, whatever ACO, whatever group population of people that we're responsible to take care of. Those are the attributable people within the community. Patients well in and out of the hospital provide care in a coordinated manner and integrate with all relevant care providers. And you can interpret that relevant care providers means across specialties, primary care, hospitals, post-acute care, etc. So that's all coming together. So with high levels of complexity and uncertainty underlying the transformation that's taking place, hospital boards will be responsible for fostering collaboration, supporting changes that will occur during these dynamic, transformative times, and translating such change into positive action and outcomes for the community. We clearly understand that this uncertain environment will require organizations to take carefully calculated risks and to take those risks, manage them, and lead us into the future. And to do this, our hospital will need to maintain strong linkages with our community, as I've mentioned, and work collaboratively across a wide range of community organizations, which I think as a district we've done pretty well in helping to identify the most critical health needs. And we were very proactive in this area by completing several years ago a community health needs analysis that we can still use. It's still relevant today in terms of trying to form these linkages and these relationships across our community to attack a wide range of population health challenges. We will need to identify the obstacles that exist to achieve good health, unite around shared goals, and work collaboratively to implement changes that promote a healthier community. And we get to do all of that while trying to develop a sustainable business model. The future of healthcare is changing rapidly and is at best uncertain. The role our hospital must play will be more clearly defined once the regulatory and healthcare environment stabilizes, and it certainly is not stable today. However, with strong leadership and governance and by engaging with diverse community partners, our hospital can be successful in achieving better health and health outcomes for our community. So what are the challenges we're going to be facing, not only us, but hospitals across the country going to be facing in this state of reform? Hospitals will be paid differently, and money will be tight. Risk will be moving from those who pay for health care services to those who provide the services. So what that says is we as providers are going to collectively be going at risk for managing the health of populations. And hospitals and caregivers will be caring for more people with greater health care needs. Consumerism, and we're going to talk a little more about this, will be experienced at a higher level than ever before. Price transparency, quality comparisons, and I would throw in convenience, and lots of things are coming. Managing variation in the pace of change, adapting to new payment and delivery system models with little experience and knowledge about their intended and unintended consequences. And I think we're probably going to be seeing in the political environment that we're in today. I believe the House was it the House or the Senate, Jay, that just sent to the President a bill to completely repeal. Right? Okay. So it's very uncertain right now. We'll be confronting the challenge of disruptive innovators that offer convenience and reduce complexity for the consumer at the same time driving prices and revenues down, managing new and sometimes difficult partnerships where cultures clash and missions do not align, ensuring sustainability in an evolving business model, assembling and developing the right talent, developing a deep understanding of the community's level of health and wellness, their burden of disease, and their needs to achieve the health status they deserve. And what that means is we have to get out of the hospital. We have to get out in the community. And we are doing that. We are taking steps to develop those relationships across our community so that we are able to communicate, have feedback, and develop communal plans for achieving better health. So I want to talk a little bit about the consumer today and disruptive innovation. And we're going to focus just on two areas tonight, price transparency and patient convenience. I think those are two really hot topics for all of us to consider going forward. As I've mentioned, consumers are paying more out-of-pocket for health care, and out-of-pocket prices for the same service can vary sharply between hospitals. For example, a patient's out-of-pocket price for the same MRI, same CPT code, can vary across a geographic area from $64 to $476. And I've got a graph here that shows just a little bit. There's national, Florida, Ohio, and Wisconsin. And these are out-of-pocket after insurance is paid. And you can see the tremendous variation. And the system cannot sustain this kind of variation in pricing. It's going to be driving out this, and it's going to be driving it, of course, to the lowest cost providers. Hospitals are beginning to feel the pressure of state policymakers, insurers, and consumers, and a growing number of price transparency companies such as Capstop Health are demanding more price transparency to make it easier for employers and consumers to shop and compare prices. So, for instance, if you were shopping for a colonoscopy, I'll bet, I know I couldn't call and get a price that I could compare between hospitals, between providers. You just can't do that today. But as we're going to see, patients, employers, and government are moving quickly toward price and quality comparisons for services that are easily comparable. And these procedures are called procedures that are highly transactional. They're very well defined, and their prices can be transparent. And once they are, they're going to be heading down because we as consumers are not going to be paying for the highest price, whatever it is. An increasing number of these services are going to be in the shoppable area. As patients become more like consumers who begin shopping around, prices for profitable services will rapidly ratchet down. Primarily in the outpatient world, this is where patients can actually shop when they can schedule it for their convenience. They can pick the highest quality, lowest cost provider of that particular service. And especially as physicians become at risk, they will shift their referral patterns, especially with the growth of products and networks that allow for more referral management. So physicians are very attuned to making referral patterns that will maximize the benefit of that population of people that they're at risk for.
Roger, can I ask a question when you talked about the comparable? I know today, if you, and you mentioned, you cannot get a price. So, for instance, if you go to x-rays at Proliance for their physicians, and you say, what if I pay cash? They won't tell you what you can pay for cash. So what's going to change the contracts between the insurance companies that they have with providers to allow it to be shoppable? Do you know?
It's going to come out of consumer demand, and I'm going to go into a little bit about that in just a minute.
Okay.
I think it may answer your question. If it doesn't, come back to me if you
All
will.
right.
I think it's next, actually. Just a few slides. Most of our long-range financial modeling are based on an assumption of volume-based episodic care. So
And with a price that you know, basically.
Yeah.
Do we have the opportunity to ask questions as we go along?
Probably not.
Wait till the end. But if you would make notes, that we do want questions, but...
Well, I just noticed that the board chair is making questions. I just wondered if that was open to all of us.
Yeah. I've she's referring to a slide that I'm coming to, so if you don't mind, let's go and write the questions down. We'll
Clarify the procedure.
Yeah, I understand. I should have made that a little clearer up front. So this volume-based model, we're moving from volume to value. And this will become, the volume-based model will be less and less relevant because as we move to a value-based revenue model, that's going to be based on a per capita type of a thing. It's going to be an HMO model. It will be, we'll be paid for taking care of a group of people in our community. And that's where the at-risk part of what we will be doing and looking at will be coming from. It's not defined today, but it will be.
And outcomes, right? Pay for outcomes.
And outcomes. Pay for outcomes, right? Thank you, Tom. So the future delivery of care will revolve around data, and it's probably going to be an ACO model, and we're going to talk, Dr. Wickup's going to talk a little more about an ACO model that we're talking about joining. And these are, we're hiring actuaries and informaticists and all kinds of people to bring all of this to a lower cost model that we're providing. Does that mean accountants are going to be running our healthcare system? No. So the next disruptive innovator that I want to talk about is the healthcare consumer. There are literally hundreds of tech startups, and they are coming after us. Some of the names you might have heard: Samsung, Apple, Google, Walgreens, Walmart, to name a few. And that's really what's going to be driving this consumerism in healthcare. And the other part of that is convenience. Convenience is it's been reported by primary care physicians, and I'm sure that's variable, but about 70% of what is done today in a primary care clinic can be done by a non-physician, which would mean a physician's assistant or nurse practitioner, and it doesn't have to be in a clinic office. And so it can be telehealth, it can be some sort of remote care, it can be at a kiosk in a mall. There's just all kinds of new delivery models that are coming that are going to completely reconfigure the way we're going to be delivering a lot of this transactional, convenient care volume. That in turn is going to drive the same transparency and price comparison models into outpatient services. So we've seen there's a big variation on ambulatory procedures because nobody can get the data. Nobody knows what prices are. Nobody knows what they're going to have to pay out of pocket. So there's a lot of inconsistency in pricing right now. That's all going to be driven out of our system, and those excess costs and profits will be driven out. And so consumers, by using data and feedback, we know this is coming, Fitbits and all kinds of things. We can improve our ability to maintain good health ourselves, and thus we can demand a good health discount for them. And in fact, our district plan, we've already initiated for this year we get a discount on our health insurance by instituting a wellness program, some sort of good health program in our population. Our population, meaning our employees. So going forward, consumers will have demands of their healthcare providers. Personalization, they're going to demand more individual care. They're going to demand more understanding of this particular body and what I need to do to be healthier and stay out of any kind of sort of higher cost care. Convenience, access, protection of data. As we start sharing data across many organizations, ACOs, etc., we're all going to expect that will be protected. A lot of transparency is coming, and consumers are going to demand that, and those that can't provide it won't be in the game. They're going to expect active engagement, precision, as I said, more individual styled and provided care. So I want to talk about a couple of game changers that are coming, that have already come in the Puget Sound area. And I think probably a lot of you will have heard of this, but a recent headline said, will Boeing change healthcare? And Boeing has 157,000 employees in all 50 states. And they're on the front line of jumping into accountable care organizations to help manage costs and quality, quite frankly. And Boeing in the Puget Sound area has now entered into contracts with 2 ACOs, or accountable care organizations. One is the Providence Swedish Health Alliance, and the other is the UW Medicine Accountable Care Network. And I want you to be sure and remember these two, because as Dr. Woodcock talks about our entry into a provider network, that will give us access perhaps into both of those. So Boeing employees, the benefits of Boeing getting into this and driving quality and benefits for their employees. They get same or next day appointments. They get a concierge service. They can schedule doctor's appointments, review test results, probably pay their bill online or through a smartphone. They get proactive support, proactive care for managing those chronic diseases and getting healthier. And they have a lot of shared decision making with their providers, and it costs less, lower paycheck contributions from employees, and as a part of that, because it saves the company money, they're increasing their company contributions into health savings accounts for the employees. And no office copays, so you don't have to worry about that office copay creep that we all see. The second game changer is Providence Health and Services, and you all know Providence. They operate now 34 hospitals in 5 states, 76,000 employees, and of course Swedish Medical Center is now part of Providence Health and Services. And they recently just put the equivalent of 3 of our hospitals into a venture fund, $150 million, called Providence Ventures. Staffed it with more than 100 high-tech engineers. And by the way, they recruited some genius from Amazon to come in and run this and be the entrepreneur. Their goal is to disrupt the healthcare industry before someone else does. And I think that's very, very interesting. And they will sneeze and we're going to catch pneumonia type of a thing, because whatever they do in this, they for sure will change the entire industry that we're operating in. So I want to talk a little bit about us and a number of current strategies and opportunities that we, the Board of Commissioners, will be looking at very soon. And Dr. Woodcock will be talking a lot more in a few minutes about the Overlake Provider Network. And that will be our entree into the ACO world. We also are looking at joining what is in the very beginning stages of formation in the state of Washington as a rural ACO network of critical access hospitals. Currently there's about 7 or 8 in there, and I would expect that all of this will be in there within the next year or two. We're looking at joining this sometime for probably fourth quarter near the beginning of 2017. And I want to talk a little bit about becoming more integrated with cost savings. How can we benefit in this world? And for more than 10 years, we've been members of the Washington Rural Health Collaborative, as it's now known. And there are 13 hospitals in this collaborative, and I'm going to show you collectively, if we think of ourselves instead of just Snoqualmie Valley Hospital, but a member of a complete rural delivery system, this is what it looks like. So there are 13 hospitals, and our combined net patient revenue from these 13 critical access hospitals, just like us, is nearly $500 million per year. We have 370,000 clinic visits. We have a total district population for all 13 of these public hospital districts, 330,000 people, 325 available beds. So you can see, if we think of ourselves as a rural delivery system, a rural model of delivery of health care, we now can collectively combine, drive out a lot of the cost that is associated with us individually. We can collectively come together and share those costs on a much more efficient basis. And at the same time, we now have the clout to enter into the ACO world. We have the clout to enter into various insurance contracts, and we have enough scale, I guess you could say, that we can compete in this new world rather than just one local hospital. So it's very exciting that we're a member of this and where we're going with the Washington Rural Healthcare Collaborative. And always, in today's world, we have to consider affiliation. That is still on the table. I think there's still a pathway to that, if that's the direction the board wants to go. And we are affiliated, whether we like it or not. It's just the degree of affiliation that we're going to look at. So in summary, 2 quick points. All hospitals will become more integrated, more accountable, more financially at risk. Hospitals must work collaboratively to meet community health needs and achieve the AAA and better health care, and lower costs. That's my part of it. Next up is Tom Parker, our Chief Operating Officer.
Tom, if you'll give me a second, I'm going to
Sure.
trade out.
Okay.
I believe Roger's problem is due to converting the file to PDF. So I'm going to close these out.
Oh, sure. So you'll bring it up as a PowerPoint?
I will.
Okay.
I have them both.
Roger gave a overview of the these global trends that we're seeing coming at us, and my job tonight is to help you see how these concepts are translating into something very concrete that we're going to see coming in just under 3 months. And this is for a very specific group of patients. This is the comprehensive care for joint replacement model. This is a program coming out of Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services. It's a program to test how CMS can be effective in implementing the triple aim. How can they do those 3 things all at the same time? This is my clicker, isn't it? Okay. So again, Roger mentioned triple aim. The Institute for Healthcare Improvement said it's not good enough to just do one of these at a time. You've got to do all 3 at the same time. And so this is a framework. This model is a framework, or excuse me, triple aim is a framework for getting in place these 3 things simultaneously. And they are better patient experience, improving health of our population's outcomes, better lives, healthier lives, and reducing costs. So the goal of this program is that they want better and more efficient care to Medicare beneficiaries undergoing the most common inpatient surgeries. And they picked hips and knees. And so those two DRGs that were listed up the front, those are hip and knee replacement with and without complications. They're going to test a few things with this model. First is they're going to see how bundled payment works. What is bundled payment? That's where CMS takes all the costs related to an episode of care and they say to providers. Roger mentioned the risk is shifting to those who are taking care of patients. They're going to say it's on you to manage these episodes of care for a fixed amount. So they're going to test that in this model. They're going to make sure that quality is part of it. So there are very specific quality measures tied to this program. And they're going to make sure that we're coordinating together. You're going to see in just a minute how do they achieve all of this at the same time. I was skeptical, but as I read through it, I realized that they're going to be able to accomplish it. So let me go through the model and help you see what are the major points of its design. First of all, they're going to conduct this over 5 years. So CMS is really committed to looking at this over a long enough period of time that they can see the results. And they're doing it in 67 markets across the country. And these are in MSAs of at least 50,000 people or more. They're going to hold hospitals financially accountable for quality, and they're going to define it. They've been very specific. Complication rates and consumer satisfaction as measured by HCAHPS and cost. So the hospitals are responsible for quality, patient satisfaction, and cost. And you're going to see how they're accomplishing that. And as I mentioned, it's for the entire episode of care. What that episode is defined as is when a patient admits to the hospital for knee or hip replacement, that's the starting point, and then it's 90 days after discharge. So all the cost and all the care involved in that episode of care are under the risk and responsibility of the hospital. I've already mentioned that. All Part A and Part B services. Other aspects of the program. CMS is going to compare each hospital's performance on cost and quality to targets that they set for the hospital. And there's a whole formula, and it's a sliding scale over the 5 years, meaning the bar is going to get harder and harder to reach for hospitals. As Medicare says the target is lower based on the experience of others around you who are doing it lower. So they're going to really push hospitals to do it for less. Interestingly, hospitals cannot, under this program, direct patients with respect to where they go after discharge. So post-acute care, and this is why we've been looking at this so intently, because post-acute care is part of this program. Well, hospitals cannot direct patients where they go for post-acute care. All providers and suppliers will continue to get paid the way they get paid today, and then Medicare is going to do a retrospective analysis on all the costs related to that care, and then they're going to either reward or penalize hospitals based on the actual costs. And this program starts April 1. No jokes there. That's April 1. So I took the program and I took a look at, well, are they really achieving the triple aim? And I concluded that they are. So in the first area, under patient experience, they're looking at the hospital consumer assessment of healthcare providers and systems. That's the HCAHPS survey measure. This is, are you happy? Are patients happy with the care that they're getting? That's the patient experience. Population health, they're looking at the risk standardized complication rate following surgery. So if hospitals don't hit the targets on satisfaction or quality, they don't even get to talk about costs. They're out. There's no benefit to a hospital if they can't hit the measures on the first two. There's a voluntary part of this program where hospitals can survey their patients in terms of functional outcomes and add that into their population health measure. Lastly, hospitals are required to participate. This is very interesting. CMS has had pilot programs previously on bundled payment, but they were voluntary. Hospitals could opt in if they wanted to try their hand at this kind of work. No more. In these 67 markets across the country, over 800 hospitals are required to participate in this. I want to read something. Sorry, this is related to the requirement to participate, and I think it is, and again, This program has some importance to us, and I'll talk about some of the impacts that we expect to see from this program, but I think it's more instructive to see where's CMS going with all of this. It's all moving from from volume-based reimbursement to value, and this is how they're doing it. Programs just like this. Here's right from CMS on their frequently asked questions page. Why are hospitals required to participate in what's called the CJR model? Here's CMS's response. The CJR model tests implementation of a model at the geographic regional level. Again, think population health. We believe it is important to test this alternative payment model. You'll hear that word over and over again for the rest of our lives, probably. Alternative payment model. Okay. They're going to test this alternative payment model among a wide range of hospitals, including those that would not necessarily apply to participate. So you're compelled. We believe that by requiring the participation of a large number of hospitals with diverse characteristics, the model will result in a robust data set for evaluation of this bundled payment approach and will stimulate the rapid development of new evidence-based knowledge. Testing the model in this manner allows us to learn more about patterns of inefficient utilization of healthcare services and how to incentivize the improvement of quality for common, and this is lower extremity joint replacement procedure episodes. This learning could inform future Medicare payment policy. And I would say, take the word could out. It definitely will inform the future of Medicare policy and how we get paid. Last piece, sorry, I know this is long, but Section 1115A of the Social Security Act authorizes the Innovation Center of CMS to test innovative payment and service delivery models such as the CJR model, that's what this is, to reduce program expenditures while preserving or enhancing the quality of care furnished to Medicare, Medicaid, and Children Health Insurance Program, CHIP beneficiaries. They're serious. That's the point here. They're very serious about this program requiring hospitals. So how do hospitals either win or lose here? It's a long formula, but if they hit their patient experience marks and population health, meaning complication rates in this case, then they are rewarded with a gain or they are penalized with write us a check. So those targets are set every year, and CMS is going to ask hospitals to come up with a gap if their costs are higher than the target. So I mentioned that I don't know if I mentioned it, we have been looking at this for the past year because we knew that under this program, these patients that come to us from referring hospitals with hip and knee replacement are going to be included in this program. And so we wanted to understand the impact on us. Worst case scenario, we assume, what if every single patient that came to the swing bed program was redirected somehow to some other post-acute care provider? Well, number one, we know that patients retain their right to choose their post-acute care provider under this program. And two, we also know that the patients that we're getting in the swing bed program for hip and knee replacement are those patients who have had a 3-day length of stay or longer, which means that they are the sicker of that population. These are patients who are dealing with a lot of comorbidities, patients who have complex medical conditions well beyond just the joint replacement. And so we are the one program in the whole Seattle area who are able to deal with these complex medical conditions for joint replacement patients. So we could say, worst case scenario, we lose all these patients. I don't believe that's going to happen because this is a population that needs us. But let's just run that number I'll run that number a minute. I forgot about this slide. I wanted you to see the range of services we provide in the swing bed program. I don't expect us, we're not going to read through this, but I looked at the first 6 months of this year and put on here the diagnoses that we see in the swing bed program, and nowhere on there is hip replacement. We have a very robust and diverse medical capability in our swing bed program. So let's take a look. In 2005, how many patients were hip and knee replacement patients coming from area hospitals into the swing bed program who will be under this new program from Medicare? We saw a total of 13 admissions of hip and knee patients who represent 295 patient days, or 0.8 average daily census. 295 days sounds like a lot, but let's put that in perspective. For 2015, I also took a look at how many referrals into the swing bed program we declined because we had no beds. So that represented 84 patients, 33 of whom were just last month in December. As we've seen census ramp up and more and more people wanting to get into the swing bed program, our denial rate is increasing. That represents over 2,300 patient days, or in other words, 8 to 10 times as many patient days are represented by people trying to get into the swing bed program compared to the worst case scenario of patients under this pilot program that may not come into the hospital. But so my conclusion, we're not going to see a reduction in census, quite the opposite in terms of impact on the organization. There's a huge opportunity here for us. And I'll just finish with a quick story. As we worked for the last 5 years to grow the swing bed program, one of the things that we talked about doing was providing discharge planners at area hospitals with information about what happened to their patients after they came into the swing bed program. Wouldn't you love to know how Mary is doing after she came into the swing bed program and we worked with her for a few weeks? What do you think the answer was? I don't care. It was a little disheartening, frankly, to hear that the discharge planners at the referring hospitals didn't care. But not surprising. I understand their world. Their world is, I got that patient discharged. I've got 10 more on my list today to deal with. This may change their story a little bit. They're going to be incentivized financially to care. And that's okay. I'm just glad they're going to come to the table. They're now going to be thinking about that 90-day post-acute, post-discharge period of time. And who's taking care of that patient? And how are they going to do on making sure that patient doesn't bounce back into the hospital, have another acute episode here that we're going to have to eventually pay for, the other hospital. So, interestingly, we have already had an interest. The program is 3 months out. We've already had interest expressed by Overlake to start having discussions with their care management team on how we collaborate together to design post-acute care in such a way that allows Overlake to hit all those measures and provide care in that 90-day period that's less than the Medicare target. So rather than being afraid of this program, I'm thrilled that we're finally going to get a chance to participate in these programs that really financially follow what I think our heart tells us is the right thing to do, and that is to care for a patient beyond just these little segments of care. So as we move from volume to value, it actually moves us to the values that we all hold dear in the healthcare industry, and that is to do the right thing. And so I think we're moving in the right direction, despite the fact that there'll be some bumps and there's going to be some pain along the way. I'm going to turn time over now to Dr. Wickup. She's going to talk also about us moving from volume to value with more of a focus on the outpatient world.
Thank you. So I'll get me set up. It seems like the right place to stand. So as Tom has been spending some time talking to you, really focusing on what it looks like from the swing bed perspective and the big changes that are going on in the hospital models. Value-based payment models I'm going to be speaking is really going to be from an outpatient perspective for the most part. And there's two upcoming opportunities that are going to be presented to us. This is very real and very much in front of us. So as we move forward into this conversation, it opens up the opportunity to talk about the whole concept of value-based payments. So just to set the stage for us all here, we already participate in several value-based payment contracts, but these are very unsophisticated. They're things that have been around for a while. They're simply just to offer some incentives, mostly in the realm of attaboy rewards. But at least it gives you the opportunity to start entering into this process. But the sophisticated models are what's coming upon us in the very near future. So the conversations that you're going to be hearing are about volume-based contracts and value-based contracts. Roger and Tom have already started to introduce those concepts as they've been doing their presentations. So you'll continue to hear the references throughout mine and as Jane and Steve speak further. So just to remind you that outpatient services are services that are provided in the clinics, services provided in the emergency departments, endoscopy units, and the other things in the outpatient areas of our hospital. So some key terms for us to get through. Again, production or volume-based model. This is the model that's currently in use, and this is that scenario where we are paid for the services we deliver. It's on an item-by-item basis, and it really engenders that concept of, you have a problem, I will fix it. I can't engage and fix anything for you, thus I can't get paid if you don't have a problem. So it does not have any concept about wellness, and it also creates a unfortunate situation of trying to look for problems, to be creative in order to put a diagnosis around it in order to get paid for it. Versus the value-based model, which is what is emerging, that is what's coming upon us, and now pay is associated not only with the work you do, there's still going to be consideration for the work that you do, but also now for the quality and the efficiency of the work, just as Roger and Tom have already talked about. But now it incentivizes wellness, and it rewards good management of resources. Outcomes also will be factored in, and it will be considered a measure of quality. Outcomes are going to be later in the process, but they will come nonetheless, and they're part of the plan. So, population health, that's another term that you've heard used already tonight. And just a reminder, population health refers to any specified group for which you're being accountable for their health. So those groups, depending on the context of the scenario, those groups maybe are defined by a specific disease, maybe it's by a specific age, maybe it's patients or people within a geographic area. Your population is defined, and now it's the health of that population that you're being held accountable for. Care coordination goes somewhat along with population health, and that is when we have active involvement with some select individual patients to assure good outcomes. So there's going to be patients who have multiple disease processes that you're going to want to, we will be working with them to try and accomplish the right care, to get them in, to coordinate their care. Those people who are not compliant, so you will be coming along and helping with, and then also inter-facility coordination. So that is what the reference of care coordination means. As we get further along, you'll understand more why that's important. And the final key term is narrow networks. And that is, the network is anywhere which a patient is eligible to receive care. Narrow networks are when it is essentially obvious, narrow. There's only a few people that are allowed to provide care. We made a reference to this earlier in the medical committee meeting, in that Secure Horizons is a narrow network. They've greatly limited the number of participants. We've been trying for years to be offered participation, and finally we're allowed entry into that narrow network. Finally, many people in our community who purchase Secure Horizons can now receive all of their care in our facility, as opposed to just the small amount that they had gained us entrance into. So a real-life application there. The AAA, you've heard several times, about improving population health, managing cost, and having a better patient experience. And evidence-based care is also becoming more and more important. No longer is the days of yore when a physician or any healthcare provider could just say, this worked the last time, maybe it'll work again. I think this is a good idea, let me try it. It is now the care that we provide is expected to be backed up by evidence-based insight and understanding and such. And if there is evidence to the care that should be provided, you're expected to provide it. So it is working a nuanced difference, but that is what a lot of measurements now are going to be placed around. So just a little history leading up to this change to value-based payments. So as everybody in the room is probably very well aware, the U.S. healthcare expenditures have skyrocketed in the last 20 years. And at the same time that the rates have been going up, our survival rates and our health measures have been going down almost at an equal angle, just in the exact opposite. And so on the world stage, we really have a very dismal representation. So in 2007, the triple aim was introduced. Tom Marks talked about that as part of the IHI presentation, and it was part of the IHI's 100,000 Lives campaign. And it was an effort to try and curb some of the many deaths that were occurring at that point in time unnecessarily, especially in consideration of the amount of dollars that were being spent. Thus was introduced the triple aim by Don Berwick at that point in time, who eventually became leader of CMS, and this has very much taken root in now the new concept of healthcare reform. Despite the triple aim, volume models have failed to contain the costs and failed to improve the outcomes, thus the transition to value-based. The other key piece is that patient information and patient data have been getting held hostage by whoever is the supposed owner of that information, and that it's been done with an effort to garner market share and to further exploit the volume payment models. So as we continue to talk, you'll hear conversation about transparency, sharing, collaboration that is very much a part of the value-based payment models. So the two things that we're going to be talking about today is one is called a clinically integrated network. This is something that's immediately available. We're going to spend a fair amount of time on it tonight. And it is a stepping stone to an accountable care organization. And that's something that we will talk about later in 2016. Roger already introduced that to you. The reason why it's being done in this order is the things that we do learn and implement in the clinically integrated network will be very important to leverage because they are a great stepping stone into what's necessary for an accountable care organization. So just to introduce right now the clinically integrated network. So what is it? So I will read with you. This is a very purposeful fostering of alignment and collaboration, and just those are important words, the alignment and collaboration among independent physicians and hospitals in a way that increases quality and efficiency for patient care to maximize the value of services delivered. Those words, alignment, collaboration, could fall under antitrust, and so everything about a clinically integrated network has to be monitored by the Federal Trade Commission because it does have the possibility. And the reason why it does not cross the line into antitrust is because it's for the purpose of quality and efficiency. So that always has to be a priority. This is not a way to maximize dollars. And in fact, it does not result in maximizing dollars for any particular part of the venture. What it does is maximize value. And that's what you get for what you pay. The U.S. Department of Justice also is heavily involved in oversight of any clinically integrated network. So why would you think about joining a clinically integrated network? Several reasons. All of us in the healthcare industry are going through the same transitions. The same requests are being made from us. Why not go through it together? So the concept of a rising tide lifting all boats. Or as Steve told me, the water level rises the rubber duckies to the same level, right? There's also economies of scale that you can garner by all coming together. So there's definitely the work that's involved in contracting with data analysis, data collection, all the population management tools, and obviously the learning that you can do together is always far better than you can do alone. Equally important is a CIN allows access to contract opportunities or access to patient numbers. Many of the very desirable contracts are only offered to the groups that can have high patient volumes, where you can demonstrate quality, where you can manage the cost, where you can show that you're adhering with evidence-based practices. And access to contract is probably the top two reasons, along with it is a collaborative effort to join the CIN. Sharing information is crucial in the success of any of this new market, the new healthcare environment that we're entering into. So the CIN helps to allow everybody around the table to become accountability partners rather than competitors only to grab one another's market share. That's the world we're living in right now. And you see that every time you see a commercial on TV, every time you watch what's happening. We're blessed to be protected from that because of our collaborative relationship with our swing bed program. But if you talk to anyone who works in any other hospital in this area, they will talk about the very competitive market that they live in for a grab of the market share. In this new healthcare environment that we're moving into, and as Tom was just telling us all about, is that the outcome responsibilities are going to be shared. And they're going to be shared by all of those who participate in a patient's or a population's care. So if we're all going to be participating in the responsibility for the outcome, we might as well work together to all come out good on this. And there's also a tremendous technology investment, not in a clinically integrated network. There's a tremendous technology investment in this world that we're moving into. The need to manage a population and such. A clinically integrated network provides you an appropriate way, something that meets the Federal Trade Commission's guidelines, to all of you share in the cost of that. Just an example of some of the technology requirements that come along as you move into this world. The electronic medical records need to be connected with one another so that you can share information by way of a health information exchange in the bottom right. You need to be able to have a population health management tool so that you can ask the questions, how are you doing managing all the various populations that you're asked to manage? How are you going to prove your value proposition? This is huge. This is an area where a lot of investment is going to need to go into, is in analytics and business intelligence. This is not necessarily a world that any of us that were trained in a healthcare industry received education in. So we rely on those of our colleagues who have their MBAs to join, and it really is going to be much more conversations around the table about those. So the opportunity being presented to us for a clinically integrated network is called the Overlay Provider Network. So the ones who are invited to this is all Eastside independent physicians and physician groups, as well as the physicians employed by Overlay, called the Overlay Medical Group. It is set up to be an LLC, and this LLC is led by physicians, and so that's called the Board of Directors. The operational expenses and all of the startup expenses are being underwritten by Overlake, and they will serve as the Board of Trustees. The reason for doing this, you might ask, is why is Overlake going to do this? They've already committed about $1.5 million to this project, and so part of their strategic plan, part of their desire is to maintain independent physicians and physician groups on the East Side. So that everyone together can be successful in this rapidly changing market. So they're transparent with their reasoning for doing it. And then everyone will benefit, most importantly, the patients and all of us together. So why us? Why did they invited us to the table? So value into any of these organizations, and especially into an accountable care organization, which we're moving to later, is measured by patient lives that are represented in a clinic or a group. We represent more than 20,000 total lives in our organization. Primary care is also going to be foundational in this new world. This new health care that we're going into is going to be very focused on primary care, patient care, of wellness, decision-making from the very beginning, talking with patients about end-of-life care, use of resources. You can just see how it goes on, and that focus continues to come back to primary care. The investments that we have been making into our clinic system over the years, and Roger said earlier, as he was relating the history of our organization over the last 15 years, that we went from 0 clinic to the clinic presence that we have right now. So all of those investments are now translating into what is going to be a jewel for us in moving into this new world. There are some hospitals that we encounter who don't have clinic relationships, and that their transition through these times are going to be a lot more challenging. So again, I said one of the 2 most important reasons for participating in a clinically integrated network is access to contracts. So 2 contracts here that I call out specifically is the Boeing contract, which Roger went through in some detail in his presentation. There's also a contract called PEB, which is Public Employees Benefits, Insurance, which is the Washington State employees. Both of those contracts are only on offer right now to very large entities. So we are not participants in these contracts. By way of the clinically integrated network, we can become participants because Boeing, the Washington State Employees PEB program, and others, there are several others coming right behind them. They all will look at us as the large group and offer contracts. Just to make sure everybody knows that a CIN contract does not supersede, and it will not repeal any current contracts that we have in place that are advantageous. There are contracts that are negotiated by way of the CIN, and if we're ready, they can replace the one we have, or there can be a layering on it. I won't go into any more detail than that, but it is always to our advantage. The board of directors, just to go back to that, again, this is the physician group that is the director and making the decision-making body for this new LLC, is a group of 7 independent physicians and 5 Overlake employed physicians. So the independents hold the majority in this decision-making body. The board of trustees is Overlake, and so they will hold the responsibility for how dollars are spent as the board of trustees. But the LLC charter, because again, remember that is under the oversight of the Antitrust Confirmation as well as the Department of Justice, we're obligated to always work in collaboration for everyone's benefit. So lots of safety is already incorporated into this product. Next steps for us is the details of the participation agreement will be brought to the upcoming Finance Committee meeting and the upcoming Medical Committee meeting. So they'll be looking at the participation agreements in great detail in both of those settings from the different perspectives of each of those committees, with the anticipation of requesting that it be entertained as a resolution at the February board meeting. So again, very quickly up on us. This is ready to go. We've been participating in this for the last 6 months, getting it ready to stand up. It is in the process of standing up, and thus our opportunity for participating is here. I'm going to go ahead and shift our thoughts now to accountable care organizations, because that will be the next thing that we want to move towards. So this is a legal structure between hospitals, physicians, other healthcare entities to deliver care across the continuum for a defined population in a specified period of time. It assumes accountability. Please notice that those words are italicized. There's an accountability now for improving the quality of care and managing costs. Usually an ACO is much bigger, on the scale of 5,000 or up to 50,000 lives are recommended to be a participant in an ACO in order to leverage the real value and benefits out of it. So that all of a sudden, they start sounding very much alike. So let me just take some time to say what the difference is between a clinically integrated network, which really is focusing on primary care, specialty care, and acute care. And generally, it's not risk associated, it's only a shared savings incentive. Whereas an ACO, the expanse is broader. You now include post-acute care, you now include home health, you now include medical home equipment, and now shared risk comes in as well as shared savings for your incentives. So now you're starting to see why it's so important to start with a clinically integrated network, get great insight, understanding, and processes before you move into the ACO world with the risks that you bring on board for accountability. So the Rocky Mountain ACO is the ACO that we're going to have an opportunity to participate with. And that's by way of, as Roger already said, our Washington Rural Health Collaborative, and that's in association with the Western Colorado Collaborative, who's already launched this ACO. So the CIN, again, is going to confirm our readiness for this, and we'll return to this conversation later in 2016. So tonight we're not going to go over any details other than to introduce it into the conversation and to have it be part of your picture, your view into where it is that we're going, especially as we enter into our strategic planning sessions for 2016 and 17. So just to remind, at an organizational level, transition is hard, and we are riding the wave of a very big change. And if you don't ride the wave the right way, it can roll over you. So recognizing the importance that data is going to play in this new world that we're entering, data collection, data analysis, figuring out benchmarking, our responses to the data, so investment at that level. Huge culture change has to happen. So, because right now, everything about our healthcare industry is production focused. And we're going to be moving into a value-based focus, looking at wellness, continuing to move to cost containment focuses. But that's very different glasses that have to be looked at. And now we have to start looking at the total expenditures of healthcare, not just what it costs for somebody to be cared for in our facility, but what it costs for that patient's entire episode of care, which is Tom just spent a lot of time talking about that. And the incentives also are going to be changing. So the payment models must change, and they have to change across all disciplines. So previous forays into this arena have not gone so smoothly because the payment models didn't change, and the payment models are now getting ready to change. The details on this slide are not as important as the recognition that as you move from left to right, you get more X's in the boxes. So the first column, paper performance, is where we're living right now. We're almost in a paper performance. The second column is the clinically integrated network, where you're just talking about shared savings, and the final column is the ACOs, where you've now brought shared risk in. And you see, you have to be able to do more and more things in your organization, be able to provide more and more services, be able to accommodate this new system in a new and different way. And again, that is resource heavy to be able to do those things. And this is just a continuation of the same bit of information as you move over. And now you start seeing at the bottom the actuarial analysis that Roger brought in, the need for reserve for some of the highly shared risk ACOs and such. So we are not just starting this journey as an organization. We have already been preparing. And as I put this list together, it was, personally, I was like, oh, we've actually been doing a lot. I feel like I'm in a different place on the wave than I realized I was, and I meaning all of us. We have been learning at every opportunity about this. For the last 2 years, we've been taking advantage of every value measures opportunity that comes our way that we can participate and report in. There has been intentional inclusion at every provider meeting, an item related to preparing them for transition to this value-based payment, trying to get that cultural change going on, that's trying to introduce them to those new glasses that they're going to need to be listening to. We've been very heavily involved with a large HRSA grant through the collaborative, whose entire purpose is to prepare all of our participants in the collaborative for value-based payment readiness. And we are just beginning our second year in that grant. I apologize. And then there's also through the collaborative is a public hospital district board contracting group. We've been an active participant in that. Steve has been representing us there in contracts, contract development. Again, great forum to participate and plan for value-based contracting. The Overlake Provider Network, the clinically integrated network that I introduced, had the opportunity to sit on that steering committee for the last 6 months and have now been offered the opportunity to sit on the board of directors to be a participant and continuing to form that and speak into things that are happening on the east side. And then HIE, that's Health Information Exchange. We've been involved in that for quite a long time, looking for opportunities, again, about information sharing, so information doesn't get held hostage or be the barrier for us moving forward. We've been a participant in meaningful use and the quality incentive programs associated with that. We are hard pushers on our electronic medical records to push it, to give us data out, to maximize its functionality, figure out all the different ways that we can push data in, pull data out, and use it for these purposes. And we've been very intentional about developing internal disciplines where we can gain experience using data, interpreting data, and responding to it. All summarizing to leading internal change while we're looking at populations, learning how to assess and such. So the key takeaways that I hope that you'll leave here with after I've had a chance to visit is that the volume-based model is definitely dwindling away right now. The value-based model is gaining prominence, is coming our direction. Integration and collaboration across the continuum of care is what's going to be necessary in order to survive in this market. The physician leadership is critical, especially as well as the structure that you find in a hospital system. The investment in the technology is going to be highly necessary, as I already alluded to. And long-term planning, again, thinking about our strategic planning session coming up, that long-term planning is essential because it's the difference between reacting and responding. Because those of you who are part of leadership know that we react out of fear, that we respond from a position of knowledge and thoughtfulness. And we want to always find ourselves in a position of responding, not reacting. I couldn't help but, in my mind, as I was putting this together, realize that everything we presented about the transition to value-based care, value-based payments, this already is our mission. We've already been ahead of this, maybe not even realizing it. But if you look around the outer circle, where we talk about innovation, collaboration, quality, three key elements in this transition. And our mission statement, this is our mission statement, promote the health and well-being of people in our community, that's our population, by providing quality care in a collaborative environment. And so we are already living this world that we're moving into. We just didn't realize we were so far ahead of the game. So I'm going to transition to Jay, who's going to spend some time. I've been talking about how volume to value, which is really outpatient, and really not talk about our critical access status or cost-based reimbursement, which is what Jay's going to grab while everybody takes a quick break.
I was going to say you might want to give us about 2 minutes.
There you go.
Is there anybody else that wants to leave for a sec?
The president has spoken. Wait a sec, why don't we take a 10-minute recess?
I don't think we have a chance, at least
No.
5.
5.
Yeah.
5-minute recess.
Okay,
Is
I
that
can
all right?
recess.
Is it a good place to do that?
The president has spoken.
Is it a good place to do this, Jay?
No reflection.
Yeah. Everyone's got to get refreshed.
Well, that was easy. We could clip that.
All right, Val's getting us all set up here. So good evening, everyone. I am Jay Rodney, District General Counsel.
Those are mine.
We're going to end on a strong note with the lawyer and the finance guy.
Okay.
Okay, so, Roger talked about the big themes that we're grappling with. Tom and Kim kind of drilled down a little bit further and distilled what those big themes and transitions mean for us. What I want to do is take it down and distill it one step further and really talk about the critical access program in the context of all these major transitions that are taking place and how that might impact us here at the local level. So it's the CAW program, Critical Access Hospital Program, going from volume to value. Where have we been, where are we now, and where are we going? Okay, first of all, a little history, where have we been? We are really unique. We are a critical access hospital, and a lot of people who are not in the healthcare industry don't know what that means. Well, the CAW program, and I'll just use CAW as a shorthand for Critical Access Hospital. The CAW program was created by Congress in 1997 as part of the Balanced Budget Act of 1997. It was intended to stem the tide of rural hospital closures that were really proliferating in the 1990s. Rural hospitals were closing across rural America because they didn't have the volumes for financial viability, and they didn't have the number of commercially insured patients to offset the huge losses from Medicare and Medicaid. So Congress had to step in and create this program that provides really a preferential reimbursement for small rural hospitals. We get 101% of our Medicare costs. Now, sequestration has reduced that to 99%. That was a couple years ago, but that's the gist of the program. 101% of costs. If you're an Overlake, if you're an Evergreen, if you're another large hospital, you really get about 60 cents on the dollar for your Medicare patients, and even less than that for your Medicaid patients. So that 101% reimbursement has enabled rural health hospitals to stay in business and remain viable. But even still, at that 101%, that doesn't lead to profitability. So since 1997, the CAW program Congress has enacted over a dozen laws to modify and enhance the CAW program. I provide the link there, which is the source of that. The bottom line is that in each of those dozen or so pieces of legislation, the CAW program has been strengthened by Congress. The CAW program enjoys significant support on Capitol Hill. And we'll talk a little bit about that why that is. So we get 101% reimbursement. That's the quid. The pro quo, what do we have to do in exchange for that? We have to limit ourselves to 25 beds. We can't go above 25 beds by law. We have to have a 24-hour emergency department, and there's also we have to satisfy one of those 3 mileage requirements, or either 15 miles by secondary road in mountainous terrain, or we have to be 35 miles by primary road from the nearest hospital, or we can be declared a necessary provider by a state. So one of those 3 things has to happen. The 15 miles, 35 miles, or be declared a necessary provider. The necessary provider provision is how we were granted critical access status. That necessary provider option has been eliminated by Congress effective January 1, 2006. We were so no longer can a state designate a hospital as critical access by providing or by designating that hospital as a necessary provider. Right now, in order to be a critical access, you have to do one of the 2, 15 miles or 35 miles. Okay, so what does the program look like now? Currently across the country, there are 1,330 CAWs in 45 states. 8 million patients are treated in CAW emergency departments annually. On average, there are 38 million outpatient visits to CAWs, 809,000 patients admitted to CAWs last year. Now, this is significant. CAWs make up 30% of all hospitals in the nation, and yet we only take 4% of the Medicare hospital budget. And that'll be, we'll put that into some greater context here in just a second. Here are all the critical access hospitals as of 2014 in the country. And you can see, look at all of the, I mean, boy, it's like they're all built next to one another throughout the Midwest, it seems like. So we'll talk about the 10-mile rule and the mileage requirements. If those rules or threats were to be implemented, you'd see a lot of these dots in the Midwest go away. Okay? This is, in 2014, Medicare in total spent $597 billion. Out of that $597 billion, 23% went to hospital payments. Out of that 23%, cause took 4% of that 23% was for cause. So you can see it's a very, very small fee, or it's a big, big bang for a little buck. So the recent threats, Gene's talked about some threats that have been around for the last few years. One of those threats is making permanent the reduction in cost-based reimbursement to 100%. Essentially, it's taking sequestration and making that permanent. The 10-mile rule, elimination of all cause, eliminating that status for all cause within 10 miles of another hospital. And then for all necessary provider cause, removing the exemption of those mileage requirements. And we're going to talk about the impact of those, what those threats would mean for the Rural Access Program. And I can tell you, so I was back in Washington, D.C. in September as part of a Washington State Hospital Association delegation to speak with each of our members of our congressional delegation, our 2 U.S. senators, and we actually got to talk to everyone. Both U.S. senators met with us and all of our congressional delegation. Every one of them have said, 10-mile rule, not on the table. Not going to happen. And why? Because the 10-mile rule, if that was implemented, just that 10-mile rule would close 45 cause nationwide. It would only save $690 million over 10 years, and that equates to 1/100th of 1% of that 10-year Medicare spend. Why would you close 45 hospitals and devastate 45 communities for 1/100th of 1% of Medicare's 10-year spending? Congress just will not do that. Because those 45 cause, those patients are going to have to go somewhere else for treatment. So any savings would be negated by the fact that those patients are going to have to go to more expensive, larger tertiary care hospitals. So, and that's just, the immediate dollar impact. The savings would be $690 million, but then from that, subtract all of the additional costs that would have to go in to transporting those patients to places like Harborview and Evergreen, out of their communities. If the necessary provider mileage exemptions were removed, it would close approximately 800 cause. As I mentioned, back in that slide that showed all the Midwest cause, most of those would close. And again, the savings would not be as great when you factor in all of the care. All those patients would have to travel and go somewhere else for their care. The Medicare patients and recipients and beneficiaries would still need to have health care. They'd have to go further away from their communities to get that. So bottom line is that the cost to rural communities would be devastating if these recent threats were put into effect. And so that's why we're pretty confident that we can predict that for the next, foreseeable future, 5 years or more, threats to the COP program are unlikely to materialize because of the devastating impact on our rural health system and the marginal savings that would result. So where are we going? Dr. Whitcomb and Tom talked about volume to value. Medicare is going to do a demonstration project specifically for critical access hospitals in value-based reimbursement. The problem with critical access hospitals, we don't have the numbers of patients to really create a center of gravity to test new reimbursement models. So Congress right now is trying to work with CMS to authorize different demonstration projects specifically for cause. And those will be coming up, I think, in the next 18 months to 24 months. So again, within the next 5 years, we anticipate the COG program and cost-based reimbursement will stay the course. But nonetheless, we really need to prepare for that transition from volume to value. And so as CMS produces its demonstration project for cause, we're going to maybe try to participate in those to test those new payment models that will be cost-specific, that will lead in our transition from a volume-based reimbursement model to one that's based on value, that emphasizes primary care, efficiency, quality, and collaborations. Okay? And that's it. And now we can all go to sleep.
Thank you. We were. Sure would be the operative word.
The numbers.
No, this is the one that everybody wants to hear about, the money.
The money.
Okay, Jay talked about cost-based reimbursement. The elephant in the room, obviously, is will it be around for 5 years or not? We think it will. And
Other people think it will.
so we have forecast assumptions. I'm going to show you our forecast for 5 years. It says cost-based reimbursement will be in place for 5 years. Inpatient growth above 2015, we're already seeing that. ED growth, and then 2% revenue growth and 2% expense growth. So very modest revenue and expense growth. So what does that produce? He says, which button do I push? The right.
The right.
Right. Okay, kind of small. But if you look, operating income, a positive operating income, 2016, 1.8 million, that's in the center of the page, right there, going to 2.6 million. Net operating, after you take financing costs in, going from a loss to a positive net income in total. Now, what I worry about is cash, unrestricted cash. How much money do we have in the bank that is not restricted by contract? In English, that means it's not tied up in bond covenants or debt covenants. So in 2016, the forecast, and we paid good money for this forecast and worked very hard on it mid-year, 6.8 million. To put that in perspective, at the end of this last year, we had 7.1 million in unrestricted cash in the bank as of the 31st. So, okay, I'm going to stay conservative and not change that. Before we moved into the new hospital and changed our capital structure, we had in the bank unrestricted cash in May of 147,000. So this capital structure, this business model produces an increase in cash, unrestricted cash, going to 12 million. Total cash, which includes some bond covenants and tax some bond commitments, goes from 15 to 20 million. So we build cash, which is, what that means is we become financially stronger. Okay, how does Medicare pay hospitals? Just really quick, critical access hospitals, as Jay said, were cost-based reimbursed. This includes the direct costs and overhead costs allocated to Medicare and Medicaid patients. All other hospitals right now, PPS hospitals, are volume-based, based on a fixed amount to treat each patient, based on their age, sex, disease diagnosis, procedures, and presence of complications. Now, kind of deeply diving into, okay, how does everybody pay us? Well, Medicare and Medicaid were cost-based reimbursed, which we just talked about. Other payers, insurers, were paid a fixed amount based on a contract we have with the insurers. And part of the movement from volume-based to value-based will be negotiating some value-based contracts and getting experience in that, because we're going to need to get experience in that because we don't have any right now. Self-pay patients, Okay, we're paid based on the amount we bill, and the patient may qualify for charity care based on our charity care policy. In the future, right now about 4% of our patients are self-pay. That's been going down. In the future, I would anticipate that will continue to go down. Affordable Care Act. More people are going to get insurance. Okay, the Congress is going to vote tomorrow to veto it and throw it out, put it in the trash bin, and the president's going to veto it. And then next year we'll get a whole new bunch of senators and a president, and they'll be fighting about it, but there's probably going to be something available. So, right, even though the Republicans may argue, Jay. Okay, financial metrics from the forecast. This is a restatement a little bit, but whoops. Unrestricted cash, again, 6.8 million to 12 million. How many days cash on hand is that? Days cash on hand means how many days worth of operating expenses can you cover with the money in the bank? From 74 to 120. Total days cash on hand, that includes bond reserves. I really concentrate on the unrestricted, but that goes 166 to 207. Right now, the median days cash on hand for a critical access hospital is 68. A lot of critical access hospitals, and we were there 6 months ago, are cash poor. That's why you see a number of 68. Some of them are up in the 200, 250 range, but you've got a lot that are really on fumes. So, and then debt service coverage. Higher the number, the better. That's how your cash flow covers your debt. Going from 1.3 to 1.5. And that's just a graph because it looks nice and it goes up. But anyway, it's our total cash. So, forecast summary. If I look at this forecast, and I have what's important is positive net operating income, an improving financial position with an increase in our cash balances, better liquidity. We're able to weather more of the storms that will come. In healthcare, there are always storms that will hit you that you go, well, that wasn't really fun, but we got to figure it out. So have cash in the bank, you can do that. And I stole this from Jay, you saw it, but current system, retrospective reimbursement, cost-based reimbursement, and prospective payment. Future payment changes. I put a question there because that's what we're going to have to invest in, find out about how they work. Pay for performance, value-based, bundled payments, accountable care organizations. We need funds, and we will have funds, to explore those, learn about them, and be able to really survive in the next iteration of healthcare. And then after I retire, there will be the next iteration of healthcare. And after Kim retires, will be the next iteration of healthcare. And after my son retires, will be the next iteration of healthcare. So that's where we are. We have a forecast. It shows a strong improvement in financial position, but we have things to learn, which we've talked about. Everybody's talked about. So that's the end of the presentation. And right now, I'll turn it over to Roger to field a whole lot of questions.
We have a few more slides.
Oh, we have a few more slides. Here.
But I promise there's only
Okay.
All right, to sum up, where are we going, bridging the gap? So we're going from volume-based, and I won't read all of those, but we've been through that tonight. And we'll be moving to value-based strategies. And, of course, that's pay for results, population health, community health improvement, et cetera. The questions are, and this is sort of where we are, one foot on the dock, one foot in the boat type of situation now, is how do we move to a value-based system when our revenue is primarily volume-driven, as it is today? How do we don't get soaked, and how do we test the waters with a new set of tools? So one CEO of a large hospital system said, navigating this migration is our central management challenge for the next decade. Transitions are always messy, and we're in a transition period. You can't have one foot in two boats forever. So, in conclusion, critical access program will remain for the foreseeable future. We are going to transfer from volume to value, whether we're critical access or not. Fee-for-service and PPS system will undergo significant change and diminish. Revenues will decline. Systems will continue to consolidate, as we've seen in Washington. Payers, systems, government are all moving in the same direction, but the end result is very unclear at this point. There's a lot of uncertainty, a lot of risk, a lot of experimentation, but at the end of the day, the goal is still to provide better services for the populations and communities that we serve, do better for less. So that's where we are. I think do I have another? No, that's it. So at the end of the day, I hope that we've been able to set this up